I will. So we're just doing the audio check right now. We're making sure. Okay, we can go.
Good morning. Welcome to the new configuration of the Board of Supervisors meeting. We are keeping 6 feet apart, and we all have our masks for when we're not up here. And it just seems kind of strange. It's all right. It's a new day. If you can, and we can't see you, but we'd like you to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank all of you. You can now get your coffee. Madam Clerk, are there any staff announcements that you know of this morning?
I am not aware of any staff announcements, Madam Chair.
Okay. Excuse me. I'd like to move to the regular agenda. The first item is an update from staff on the COVID-19. I'm going to let Ms. Severud orchestrate how that's going to happen.
Okay, so why don't I go ahead and read the item title, which is from Health and Human Services, to receive an update presentation from staff on COVID-19 novel coronavirus.
Mrs. Stranger, Dr. Kaleda, are you with us?
Good morning. This is Dr. Kaleda. I'm with you.
Thank you.
Kristen's here. Good morning. Kristen's here as well.
Thank you.
All right. I'll start with some things regarding a Calaveras COVID-19 update for today. Let me turn my camera on. For today, June 23rd, 2020. California now has 178,054 confirmed cases to date, and there have been over 3.5 million tests conducted in California so far since this pandemic started. As testing capacity continues to increase across the state, an increase in the number of positive cases should and is expected to continue to increase. That increases the importance of the positivity rate of the testing to find signs of community spread, and I'll discuss that later. There have been 5,515 COVID-19 deaths in California since the start of the pandemic. Calaveras has reported 28 total confirmed cases with no deaths. We identified 9 new cases in the past 14 days. This represents a 30% rise in cases over the past 2 weeks in Calaveras County. All 9 of these new cases are from the Valley Springs area. 4 are male and 5 are female. 7 are from the age grouping of 18 to 49, and 2 are older adults greater than 65 years of age. So far, public health has been able to determine, based on our contact tracing process, that all 9 of these cases are not linked to the same source of exposure, but rather several sources of potential infection have been identified both inside and outside of our community. Transmission has occurred within households, among household members, as well as community transmission in the Valley Springs area. 16 of the 28 cases have recovered, and all have been released from isolation, and 16 of our cases are still active and are still under isolation, and exposures are under quarantine. Access to testing continues to improve locally. We've adjusted the days and hours for the OptumServe test site at the Calaveras County Frogtown Fairgrounds to increase the availability to accommodate more Calaveras and Tuolumne County residents. The site's now open Tuesday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Those recommended to undergo testing continue to be those with symptoms of COVID-19 infection, those with exposure to a known or suspected case, individuals with high risk for complications from the illness were they to develop it, and asymptomatic members of the public working in essential industries, healthcare services, and those interested in getting COVID-19 testing. People can pre-register and make an appointment time online by visiting the website. That information is linked from our Calaveras County Public Health website. They can call the 800 number that's posted, or they can just show up during the regular business hours I discussed just now. The rate of positive tests among Calaveras County residents has increased but remains stable at around 2%. This is below the benchmark of 8% seen in regions with high levels of community spread occurring. Local hospital bed, ICU bed, ventilator capacity remain adequate at this time to handle a surge of potential cases of COVID-19 were they to present to the local hospital. No cases of COVID-19 infection have been identified in Calaveras nursing homes or assisted living facilities. Avalon San Andreas care staff are now being tested on a recurring schedule to find any potentially asymptomatic employees and isolate them from the workplace. Effective June 18th, California began to mandate that face coverings be worn by everyone statewide. So people should wear face coverings when in public places, particularly when those locations are indoors or in other areas where physical distancing is not possible. Face covering must be worn in the following circumstances and with the following exceptions. Any indoor public space, in any healthcare setting, those using public transportation, not just buses or trains, but also riding in taxis or ride-sharing services like Uber or Lyft. In the workplace, when interacting with the public, when interacting with coworkers, in common areas in the workplace like break rooms or kitchens, restrooms, hallways, elevators, other enclosed spaces when not able to maintain social distancing, it's necessary to wear a face covering when at work in the workplace. Outdoor public spaces when unable to maintain 6 feet of social distancing, physical distancing. Exemptions from the face mask requirement are limited to the following groups and individuals: kids under 2 years old, persons with a medical condition that would make a mask limit their breathing or cause emotional duress, having some kind of work done on the mouth or face, like seeing a dentist, those who are hearing impaired, who require reading lips to be able to properly communicate, when eating or drinking at a restaurant or other establishment, provided that the seating accommodates 6 feet of separation between non-household patrons. Those engaged in outdoor work or recreation, assuming the keeping of physical distance between others at all times, like discussed. A note is that persons exempted from wearing face coverings due to a medical condition who are employed in a job involving regular contact with others should wear a non-restrictive alternative to a face mask, such as a face shield, a plastic face shield with a drape at the bottom edge as long as their condition permits it. There's significant scientific evidence to suggest that the use of a basic cloth face mask covering by the public during a pandemic helps reduce disease transmission. Their primary role is to reduce the release of infectious particles into the air when someone speaks, coughs, sneezes, including someone who has COVID-19 but feels well, may be asymptomatic and not know that they're infectious. Cloth face coverings aren't a substitute for physical distancing, for hand washing, for staying at home when ill, especially if high risk, but they are helpful when combined with those other primary interventions. Effective last Friday, June 19th, Calaveras County began moving further into stage 3 of the state's roadmap to recovery, with reopening of additional sectors of local businesses with modifications. Expanded personal care services joined the list of stage 3 businesses that can reopen with modifications. Personal care services are defined as those that require touching a client's face, such as electrolysis, waxing, facials. This guidance also applies to estheticians, skin care, cosmetology services, electrology, nail salons, body art professionals, tattoo parlors, piercing shops, massage therapy. The guidance includes stringent protections intended to support a safe, clean environment for workers and customers. Although each county can have different restrictions, it's critical that the people stay home as much as possible, especially those at higher risk for severe illness to COVID-19. If you have to go out, stay 6 feet away from others who aren't in your household and wear a face covering over your nose and mouth. If we do this, we'll have more freedom to go out and appreciate the areas that have reopened. This is what we need to do to keep Calaveras County safe and healthy. So Ms. Stranger can comment a little bit more on the specifics about the businesses that have reopened into the advanced stages of stage 3 of the pandemic roadmap.
Good morning, Kristen Stranger, Health and Human Services Agency. Dr. Clayton did a fantastic job of covering the bulk of where we are right now with the point in time. I did want to put a couple of finishing remarks. So far we have the state has released 38 individual guidances for various sectors and industry that many of our local community partners and businesses are utilizing. We've done a number of outreach and making those information documents available on our website, as well as links to the state website. So again, re-encouraging everybody to utilize the COVID-19 webpage as your go-to location for identifying information and such. And that some of the requests that we've heard from public lately is more information on particularly youth sports and such. Those guidances have not been released, but as we have been with the other guidances, as soon as we're made aware of any sorts of new guidances that are going to be coming out, we will inform our public and load them to our website as well. But we know that there's a lot of attention right now about trying to get more and more information, such as information on youth sports and fairs and livestock auctions and other types of things that we're getting discussion. And when those are made available, we will make sure to post them and notify our community as we have throughout the pandemic. At this point, Dr. Clado or myself can take any questions.
Do any of the board members have questions for Dr. K or Mrs. Stranger? I do. When we were first coming out with the notification of cases, we would say they got it aboard the ship or they were out of the country. We're not doing any of that now, and I'm sure the other board members, and I know I do. Where did they get it? Not, did they get it within the community? Did they get it because they went out of the county to shop or working? I was wondering why it's not in the releases anymore. And
well, as the volume, Supervisor Callaway, of new cases continues to come in and even accelerate, like I said previously, we've had 9 cases since the last board meeting. So it becomes difficult to issue sometimes multiple press releases in a single day describing the individual circumstances around each case. So what we're doing is kind of batching that information now and releasing that on a more periodic fashion so that we can summarize for the public the most important points of what's happening, such as case occurrences happening in a local region of Calaveras County, like the Valley Springs area, and the concern for community transmission occurring. I think what's important for the public to understand is not that, the gossip about who got what from who and all of that, but rather the concepts that there's community transmission of this disease occurring right here in our community. And it's incumbent upon the public to practice those methods that can reduce the risk of transmission, such as physical distancing, hand hygiene, and now the requirement for face coverings when in public. If we can do those things, we can hopefully stem this tide and not have to concern ourselves about the potential for reintroducing some of the mitigation activities that have been very disruptive to our community in the future.
Well, I think the key point you said is community transmission. The releases aren't even saying that. And because I know I represent an area with a huge influx of visitors, and the concern from the natives being the visitors are bringing it in. My understanding is the cases we've had have not been from visitors coming in, but from residents leaving the county or getting it within the community. And
Yes, and I think it's also important for the public to realize that in Calaveras County, we're not isolated. We live in a region. Some of our neighboring communities, like Stanislaus County and San Joaquin County, have significant evidence and cases of COVID-19 disease occurring right now. So people who live in some of the areas of Calaveras County that may be sort of extensions of the San Joaquin Valley, like Copperopolis and Valley Springs, who maybe work or travel to those neighboring communities for shopping, for gathering necessary supplies. That needs to be something that we take very seriously here. And people need to understand that they're traveling to potentially communities with increased COVID-19 activity and coming back here to Calaveras County.
another question.
I can't hear you very well. Could you put your mic closer? Thank you.
Thank you. Another question I have, and maybe and this is a broader than just yourself or public health, but when we have businesses that are not following the guidelines and that are very open about not following the guidelines, what mechanism are we using to connect with these businesses? That's probably Mrs. Stranger.
This is Kristen. I can start that, and then I can see Al just unmuted so he could add to it. As we have throughout the entire pandemic, we continue to take an educational focused and an educational first approach when it comes to providing technical assistance to our local businesses, community partners about how to properly put into place the mitigation measures that we've covered, as well as come in compliance with the guidance documents. So we continue to take that approach even in the current stages that we're in, which include when we do receive information from the call center line, we follow up with a letter that states this is where you can identify the documentation, or identify the documents that are the mitigation measures that are the guidance documents, and make our community businesses aware of those documents. Al?
Yep, you hit everything, Kristen. I appreciate that. The only thing I'd add is those come in through the community line, and John Osborne through OES coordinates that effort. And then we have a COVID-19 team that meets internally that includes Kristen, Sarah, myself, John, and some other staff that we review what the reports are that are coming in. We discuss an appropriate course of action. I should have included Kathy Galino as well, as she's an important business resource. And then we use a consistent approach with all of the businesses that we get the quote unquote complaints on. And if there's, that's all I have really.
So what it is that there is no, outside of a letter, there is no other enforcement mechanism. We don't go visit the business and talk to the business owner.
Well, there has been in the previous stages, but at this point in the game, we haven't gotten multiple complaints on a business that have caused us to go beyond the educational and informational letter. And of course, we're kind of new at this stage that we're in, but we just haven't had cause from the information that we get on the community line to go beyond the informational letters at this point.
And also to add to, we've been very pleased to see the number of businesses throughout our community who have engaged very quickly on to do their very best to understand what was in the guidance documents, ask technical assistance questions. So we have a really great response from our business community about wanting to do their part in terms of trying to prevent the further spread of COVID in our community, and we're very pleased to see that.
Okay. Which gets back to my first question. I think when we give a little bit more information to the public, it makes it real versus picking on a group to say that they're bringing the virus in. So I guess that's why at some point, when you do your twice a week press release or whenever you do it, to say we have more cases, that we could give a little bit more information to the public. That's all. Thank you. Any other, Ben?
Kristen, Dr. Clada, I can appreciate the educational approach. That's something I support. A little thought behind what Ms. Calloway has to say, if I may follow her up, is, part of that educational approach is just maybe saying whether it was a community transmission or if it was brought in outside the county. You don't have to get more explicit than that, just because of protection on HIPAA laws and everything else. But I think you're well within reason to be able to disclose that. But, the educational approach when it comes to the masks on businesses is the best approach, in my opinion, and is something I can support. Thank you.
If there's no other questions or comments from the board, I'd like to open it up. Does any member of the public have anything they'd like to ask Mrs. Stranger or Dr. Kaleda?
So we have the numbers on the screen. To make a public comment, you can call 669-900-9128 or 253-215-8782. The meeting ID is 872-7001-7106, and the password is 908049.
In the meantime, Dr. Kaleda, thank you for being our public health officer. We know it's a very stressful time for public health officers, and we're glad you're not one that's leaving the sinking ship. So we appreciate all that you and Mrs. Stranger are doing for the county, keeping us as healthy as you can and being as responsive to supervisors and the public. Thank you. Are you feeling okay? Dr. K?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, it's not a question of how I feel, Madam Chair. It's a question of what's necessary to protect the health of this community. And that's what I've been doing as health officer here for the last 20 years. Yeah. And I think your comments are based on the fact that multiple health officers throughout California and even nationally have quit their jobs because of criticism from elected representatives, from criticism from the public, from people who feel that mitigation activities that have been put into place that have reduced people's ability to travel or go to school or closed businesses, represent affronts to their freedoms. And those kinds of attacks have been focused against public health professionals who are here to provide scientific guidance, medical expertise to steer our communities through this pandemic, the likes of which we haven't seen in the last 100 years. So, I'll continue to help this community through this time, and barring any other threats on my personal safety or other kinds of abuses which I've suffered at the hands of this community, of a very small, vocal minority of this community, I'll continue to be here to serve the public.
Thank you. I think we look at you as our incident commander, and there can only be one.
Ms. Callaway,
Yes.
if there's no public comment,
was gonna ask.
may I ask one more question?
Yes, go ahead.
If you're-
No. Go ahead.
As the county's reopening, and we have many essential services, and with these requirements in place, how's the policies moving forward with the county and reopening and for best practices and safety when it comes to, interactions with the public and everything else?
So I'll take that one internally if that's okay. I have distributed the guidelines and the requirements on the face mask, so I think it's probably my responsibility to speak to those. As the board is aware, and hopefully the public is as well, as we did a press release on it a few weeks ago, we've done what I'll term a soft opening on June 14th, and so we still have all of our mandated and priority services that are offered primarily by appointment only, and we are doing some services telephonically and electronically, but we have noticed the public that on July 15th, aligning with the balance of the county's reopening to stage 3, that we feel very committed internally here that our county services open along with that stage 3 reopening. So our timeline is July 15th. We will reopen services to the public. That doesn't mean, however, that we won't be following the CalOSHA and the CDHP guidelines, where all of our staff will continue to be socially distanced in many of the public spaces where we would interact with our citizens. We have sneeze shield and other mitigation measures in place. Also in our reopening guidelines, we have what I loosely term wipe in and wipe out protocols, so that we're sanitizing frequently used areas from the public, and each department has authored theirs appropriate with the type of service and interactions that they have with the public. And then the last piece of that goes along with the face mask guidance that we've talked about here that's a requirement for the public. Last week I did issue a memo to department heads and to all staff, forwarding the state guidance to our staff and requiring that under the conditions that were outlined by Dr. Coletta, where we do interact with the public, that face shields, or face coverings rather, are required. We have more interactions that we're preparing since that guidance came out on, I think, Thursday or Friday. I don't recall which day now. They all seem to run together, but we've forwarded the guidance out to all staff. We've informed them on what appropriate cloth face coverings are. We have ordered alternative face shields for public interactions where it might be with a hearing impaired individual, or if our staff feel more comfortable wearing the plastic face shields, we'll have some on order and available for an alternative. And then the last piece of that, we're working closely with our unions and associations. In fact, I have a meeting with Judy Hawkins, having coordinated it with SEIU tomorrow, and we're in the stages of scheduling meetings with our other associations to talk through the requirements and the guidance and the expectations that's been lined out for us to conform to the state guidance. Sorry for a long answer there, but that gets you up to date on what we've done internally with reopening guidelines and the face mask guidance.
Thank you.
Face covering guidance,
Do you have
rather.
any other questions?
No, Madam Chair, thank you. I appreciate you being proactive in the approach. I'm all for the county's essential services being rendered to the public. And this is part of the process is moving forward right now in these times. So thank you for the answer.
Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to add my voice to Supervisor Stoppers that I'm happy that the county is getting reopened, and I'm sure everybody's looking forward to working under these new rules, but also getting back to work. We have a lot of stuff we have to get done. We have a lot of public we need to serve, and so I'm sure our employees are excited about it, like I am.
Thank you. Seeing no public comments, I'm going to close this item and move to number 2, Madam Clerk. Oh, Dr. Kaleda, Mrs. Stranger, thank you.
Item 2 is from the Office of Emergency Services to receive a tree mortality program implementation update from TSS Consultants.
Madam Chair, I see John Osborne is in the meeting, and he'll provide a summary, and Mr. Tad Mason is with us as well, and he'll be providing the update.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Supervisors. With me is Tad Mason. He is from TSS Consultants. He's our Tree Mortality Project Supervisor or Manager. And of course, I'm John Osborne, your OES Director. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Number 1. Okay, can you guys see that screen? No. Can you guys see that screen? Hello?
No, we cannot.
Uh-oh. Let me...
That's him.
Bear with me for a minute. Trying to find my mouse so that we can... There we go. Okay.
So, John, the only thing that we can... Oh,
How's that?
no, we still don't see it. There we go, we see it.
Aha! Okay, and Tad, are you on the line, sir?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can. Supervisors, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Excellent. John, should I launch right in?
Yes, sir.
Great. Okay, good. Good morning. I hope everyone had a good Father's Day and that your week is going well. This will be a short slide deck. We've got 6 slides just summarizing progress to date for this year regarding the tree mortality program. If you recall, this program started in October of 2017, funded primarily through state funds. The CDAA as well as CAL FIRE has been providing funding for this project. So far, we have, there we go. We have completed 4 projects this year for a total of 873 trees. These projects, we've got a little more detail in slides 3 and 4 on that here in a minute, but we've also just started projects in the high country, north and east of Big Tree State Park, and those will be completed in the next few weeks. Additional projects will start soon within the Highway 4 corridor. As usual, our outreach to the public, we've got a fairly well-defined communications plan, conducting outreach to the public in 4 ways, through email and phone call communication, letting residents know when their property is going to receive tree removal services. Number 2, periodic updating of the website. Monthly press releases are issued. We have a great relationship working with local media. And then our program manager responds to calls and emails, which we get on a pretty regular basis. So, and then lastly, we've been working well, of course, with County OES to prepare the documentation to Cal OES for reimbursement. And so far, there have been no glitches in that reimbursement. Next slide.
Yeah. Bear with me a minute here. I can't seem to get it to forward at all.
While you're waiting, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Supervisor.
On the projects that are east of and north of Big Tree State Park,
Yes.
you are going to start, but you're also have Blue Lake Springs and Angels Camp and Big Trees Village. So that's Big Trees Village to Angels Camp is where you're working now?
Yes.
That's a huge area. So Big Trees Village, you're going to be east of Big Trees Village? You're complete in Big Trees Village now?
We're wrapping up now the cleanup, yes.
Okay. Yeah, cleanup has been an issue in Big Trees Village, not only with county projects, but PG&E projects, and of course the winter storm. So you're going to be working east of Big Trees Village. Is that my understanding?
Yes, Project 26 is Sky High Ranch
Got it.
to the county line, and that is wrapping up.
Okay.
And as far as cleanup, Supervisor, as far as we're aware, it's been going quite well. The primary complaint we've been receiving, and we've been receiving this for a couple of years now, is tied directly to PG&E operations in the area. On a regular basis, we are contacted by residents regarding trees that have not been removed or slash and down logs that remain on site following PG&E
Right.
operations.
Correct. Yeah, I get the same. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe we're on slide 2, sir.
Great, thank you, John. Good. If there's no other questions on slide 1, I'll continue on here. Slide 2. We've been in touch with University of California Forestry Advisors, as well as U.S. Forest Service entomologists. We had a field meeting in the spring to review tree mortality trends, and while ponderosa pine and sugar pine trees were the initial victims, if you will, of the bark beetle infestation, right now we're seeing more mortality up in the true firs at the higher elevation, and we do expect, as warmer weather comes upon us this summer, to see that mortality drop to lower elevations into the pines one more time. We are seeing additional tree mortality, and we'll be ramping up our surveys in later this month and into July for the third round of surveys countywide. Last bullet point there points out that we still have over 600 right of entry forms out for signature, and we'll be conducting another mailing to those owners to hopefully secure their right of entry forms so that we can access their property and remove the trees. Next slide.
It's up.
Thank you. This is just a quick overview of the current projects that we've recently completed. Project 9 was on Bureau of Land Management properties in the greater West Point area. We completed that in February. Project 25 is the corridor between Arnold and Murphy's. This was completed in April. Project 27 This is on private property, and this was completed also in April. And then Project 22, which was recently completed in late May, also on Bureau of Land Management property. This was a big project, 564 trees, and that was completed, and part of the cost to complete that was covered by a grant that County OES was able to secure of, I think, John, $88,000?
Yes, sir. That was the BLM grant that we received late last fall.
Right. Good. Next slide.
Go ahead.
Project 26, we mentioned, we discussed earlier, as that up in the high country between Sky High Ranch and County Line, that was recently completed. Project 28 is on U.S. Forest Service parcels, also north and east, and this is pretty well completed. We still have a few logs to remove. The road conditions did not work out all that well, so we're having to improve some of the roads to move those logs. Project 29 will be completed by July 4th, and this is within the Highway 4 corridor, over 300 trees, and I'm happy to report a local contractor, Proper Pruning, is conducting this work. Project 30, Big Trees Village. This is a smaller project, just 40 trees, and it did begin 2 weeks ago, and it is wrapping up here in the next week. Then lastly, Project 31, which is west of 49, we're currently developing the invitation to bid, and that will be issued probably in early July. Next slide.
It's up.
We are receiving ongoing input from local residents about continuing mortality. This is an example of one of the bigger trees that we were recently contacted about, and it does continue. The good news is with our press releases and updated website, we're able to conduct outreach on a regular basis to the locals, and this has been going pretty well. Last slide. As usual, we do like to report on what's going on statewide as far as accomplishments, and you can see here that about $29 million have been expended within the 10 counties impacted, with an average cost per tree of $450, $449. The one thing I would like to report on, as we're on this slide, is that as far as continued funding of the CAL FIRE portion of this, which has basically been 25% until those funds ran out earlier this year, the current state budget has an additional funding level of $815,000 to refund that program, and we're expecting CAL FIRE to begin allocation in mid-July, and those allocations will be good through June of 2022. So the good news is that 25% fund looks to be augmented now and will be active soon. And with that, I'll field questions. John, maybe you've got other things to cover here on the tree mortality program?
Yeah, just some quick notes that we have. So far this fiscal year, we've cut just a smidgen over 4,000 trees and 16 projects. So we're wrapping up our fiscal year, and we've been able to almost double the amount of dead and dying fuel removed from our forests. So that is that's an important thing to note for us, and I'm very proud of that work that our local contractors and our management team has done. So and I'm happy to answer any questions.
John, this is Marita. You said in this fiscal year, 1920, we've taken down 4,000 trees?
Yes, ma'am, 4,033.
Okay. And yet, from January to about date, sometime to the beginning, we've only taken down 873 trees. So that's a
Yeah.
significant difference. The 3,000 trees were taken down in the first 6 months of the 1920 fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am. Our battle rhythm to be really up and running is summer and early fall. When we start getting the rains and the snow in the high country, that really kind of puts a damper on our ability to get in and safely remove trees. And so that's why you see not a lot of work in the January, February, March time of year, because that's our wet season.
Okay, it just seemed like a significant difference. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have anything else, Mr. Osborne?
No, ma'am.
Are there any questions? Mr. Garamendi?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you very much, Tad and John, for the report. I have several questions, but the first one's kind of just curiosity. What trees are we working on west of Highway 49?
Primarily in the front country, we've got some gray pines and a number of oaks have succumbed to the drought conditions.
Okay, so they're going to qualify for the bug beetle money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. We've done some work previously, Supervisor, west of 49. This will be our second round through.
Okay. Second one was, there was talk earlier before the COVID about reallocating some of those CDAA funds to counties that were getting the work done, and we were running low on funds. Have you got any insight on if those funds are going to be reallocated to us?
That is an excellent question. Working with the director, John, we have corresponded with CAL FIRE to express our concerns that allocation be based on real-time mortality rather than just purely forecasting. And we've gotten some pretty positive verbal communications back from CAL FIRE on that note, but they're planning to convene a meeting in mid-July, Supervisor, to put together the strategy on how allocation will actually take place. We know there's a number of counties, for example, Placer County, that are not opting in for the second round.
Well, we should try to get it. And so how are we doing on we had an allocation and a budget. I'm pretty sure we're close to the end of the funding of that. So we're going to need this second tranche of funding to keep this machine going. How are we doing, and are we going to run out of gas before we could take it to the next level? How many metaphors can I make?
John, would you like to fund?
I can field that, and so we planned in our budget to continue our work that was based on a couple of different funding streams. Number one, the CDAA allocation, which covers 85% of our costs. As of June 17th, Cal OES has obligated to us a little over $3.27 million. The last payment I requested was $455,000. We actually got the check in the mail for 10% of that this week. I sent it for deposit yesterday. And so that funding is strong. You guys were kind enough to set aside $300,000 in PG&E disaster funds to keep us going, and we're well in hand with that. And the reason that we're well in hand with that is a couple of things. Number one, in working with Tad and the management team, we went back and found some monies that we had not requested, and we went back and requested those. So those came in this year. And then the BLM granted us $88,000 to conduct the work on federal lands. And so that actually came ACH in the last, 4 or 5 weeks. And so at this time, I anticipate that we are in good shape to continue the program. For every 15 cents that we spend, the state gives us 85 cents to help offset our costs. So I think as far as bang for buck, we have a good return on that. And obviously the downstream effects of removing dead and dying fuel from our forest is a good thing considering our fire threat, especially this year. And then with the $815,000 of CAL FIRE funding, everyone may recall that 10 counties were involved in this, and only 5 of them expended all of their CAL FIRE monies. We were one of them. And so we're hoping that those allocations that we receive some priority because of the good work that we did with the money that was given to us in the past.
Thank you. This is a great example of a successful program. And, you guys watch the money and make sure that you include the board if you need help in working with CAL FIRE or Food and Agriculture or USDA, whoever may be, because this is a good program and we're getting a great return. And now we've kind of got it wired, so we're getting things done. And I'd like to just keep the momentum. So just let us know, and thank you very much.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mills?
Thank you, Chair. Ted and John, thank you for the summary. I know that reimbursement is probably one of the key things that we need to understand. We need to probably understand project by project what has been received versus what's been paid out. You stated there's no glitches. If there's projects like Project 9 or 2527, and we know that there's a delay in time between completion of a project and the actual reimbursement, I would like to understand, you've had some funds received in advance of a project, what kind of CDAA has been obligated and how much of that's been paid out on a per project basis. Finding money, not requested, that's a great concept. But I think project by project, if we could be best to understand, going back to 2017, what has been paid out on each one of those projects and whether or not the reimbursements occurred, when it's occurred, so that we know going forward in future projects, how does this whole system work for us, and we're going to be able to stay financially ahead of the obligations that we're creating by doing the projects. I hope I didn't make that too complex.
Thank you, Supervisor Mills. It is a complex reimbursement system, and so what we have done in the past is we create a billing package that goes to Cal OES. Cal OES returns it after they review that, and the package contains multiple projects generally at a time, and once Cal OES sends that back, we agree to it, and then just within a short time frame, we receive our notice of obligation and payment. And I'm actually looking at the last one, what was dated June 17th. So the total cumulative amount is $3,275,455 to date over all of the completed projects. We do not receive funding in advance. What we receive is 75% of our total request, and then Cal OES tacks on 10% M&A on top of that, and that, just as an illustrative point, the last invoice or reimbursement claim was for $455,000. $571, and we received $41,416 for our M&A, and actually that check came, it beat the notice of obligation of payment to my desk, and then I received the notification obligation payment letter about 2 days after I got the check.
John, I recall a previous auditor talking about cash flow issues regarding tree mortality, and that's primarily the reason for the conversation that I'd like to have, is to be sure that we don't put ourselves into any kind of a cash flow shortage and trying to get these projects completed and then waiting for funding from the state.
Yes, sir. Chad and I are both extremely sensitive to the cash flow issue, and that's why we are extremely diligent in requesting the reimbursement in a timely manner. Chad, remind me, I think we requested this last reimbursement package within about 2 weeks of the last project in it being completed. Is that about correct?
Yes, that's the protocol we've been using, about a 2-week delta, to pull together the exhibits, which are very detailed, including images of the trees removed, the dates, and the GPS coordinates for each tree removed. So it's a detailed process that only you can imagine. What the state is asking for is a lot of detail. It takes us about 2 weeks to pull that together, Supervisor, and at which point John then forwards it to Calaveras, Peter Crace, and then they process. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stopper?
It sounds like the documentation process for each individual tree is quite labor intensive. I wonder how many more trees we could get with the time you have to spend documenting all that. With that said, thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Mills? Okay. Mr. Garamendi?
Just one more thing. Again, to Dennis's point, I think we are definitely figuring out how to do this better all the time. And we have made, since I started working on tree mortality 3 years ago, we have made huge strides. And I want to thank Tad for being a good partner with our county in doing that. I also want to just take the opportunity, since it's an OES agenda item, that I think it was looked from the outside like a pretty good shakeout crew that was on the Walker fire, and making sure that we're all geared up for the fall, and that's all related. So I was comforted to see a system working.
You sound surprised, Mr. Garamendi.
Well, it's not our first fire, but it's always nice to this early in the season see the system shake itself out.
You're right.
Yes, yes.
Are there any other comments, Mr. Osborne?
No, ma'am. Thank you very much, and we appreciate the continued support.
Okay, are there any public comments on this item?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one. Public comment with the caller ending in 1049. You can make your public comment beginning now. Is
family members. Oh, now I'm unmuted.
Now
Sorry
we can
about
hear
that.
you.
I was speaking. I was speaking and she came up. I'm like, what? Oh, sorry about that. My name is Miranda Cardone. I'm a mother, a teacher, and a coach in Calaveras County. Real proud to be living here in Calaveras. I'm speaking on behalf of all the family members and athletes and students in our county, and we need help. We know that the COVID has hit us and hit us hard, and we've been down, and sports were canceled us.
I'm sorry, ma'am. This
Yes.
public comment period is for item 2 on our agenda, which is the tree mortality program implementation update.
Oh.
The COVID item has been completed.
But she can also
Okay,
bring it
thank
up
you.
during public comment following this right now.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for helping me.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And we are troubled with what is not being allowed in Calaveras County as of yet, and we feel like the hands are tied based upon communications with Superintendent Mark Campbell and other board members that we need county health to get involved and to get on guidelines to help our insurance allow us to get out there and at least do some summer conditioning and allow our athletes out there. We have guidelines from the CDC. We have guidelines from CIF, who has now suspended the dead period to allow practice. And we understand that there are things that have to be done to ensure the safety of not just our athletes, but of our coaches. But we're willing to do these things. And we need hope. Our athletes are going out of the area. People are looking for other ways to get their kids involved in sports and other curricular activities and leaving schools. There are wait lists for other programs to get out of the county. And we cannot afford to lose more students in this county. We've got to give hope to our community that we are going to hopefully be in school. I know there's a lot of stuff that stuff that you guys can't do, but what my understanding is county health is holding us back. And we need them to decide to give us guidelines to look at what's been given to them, handed down. And we're helping. And I don't know if you're the right one to come to. I'm going to speak to anybody who's willing to listen, and I apologize if it's the wrong one. But we need help to help let our kids start having some hope and use the guidelines that are out there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It was sort of out of order, but since, you took the time to call in, the conditions for which the schools open are established by the state of California and the local school districts, and they have an elected boards. I'm not sure which school district you're in, but I know they're working on it, and the county health officer is working with the school superintendents. So we will make sure that they understand your concerns. We appreciate your call in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Severud, nothing? Okay. Since there's no public comments on the tree mortality issue, I'll move on to general public comments, of which this, pardon?
I think we started those already.
This item is anyone who would like to make a statement on something that is not on the agenda, like our former speaker did, please call in. We will wait a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Supervisors.
Yes, thank you.
So the
Thank you,
numbers
John and Tad.
the numbers to make public comment are on the screen now. General public comment is the item that we're on. Madam Chair, it does not look like there's any other callers.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move to the consent agenda. Ms. Severud, would you like to lead us on that, please?
Sure. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion. If any member of the public would like to pull an agenda item, they should call in now.
Thank you. Does any member of the board wish to pull a consent? Mr. Mills?
Item 22,
All right.
23,
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Okay. Item 22, 23,
25,
25,
28.
and 28. Okay, thank you. Mr. Garamendi?
Madam Chair,
I have it caught up, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait.
Could we wait just a second? 22, 23,
25 and 28.
and 28.
And 18.
And 18.
Thank you.
And any others, Mr. Stopper? Mr. Okay, all right, thank you.
You can give me 1 minute. And number 18?
Yes.
Thank you.
Has to do with money.
Does any staff member have a consent agenda item they'd like to pull? Does any member of the public have a consent agenda item they'd like us to pull for discussion?
If you give me 1 second, I can check the public. Doesn't look like there are any, Madam Chair.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the balance of the consent agenda that was not pulled?
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
Motion by Supervisor Stopper, second by Supervisor Tuffanelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. Consent agenda item 18. Mr. Garamendi.
Madam Chair, in deference to the two people who serve on the board, on the solid waste, I think they want to pull it. If you guys would rather go first.
Mr. Mills and I.
Okay, I'll defer to.
Well, there's some issues that have come up locally in our area when it comes to the contract here about hauling and the Cal Waste exclusive hauling clause within it. Cal Waste does not provide a service of property cleanup, and we have a few business owners across the county that I understand that would like to start doing property cleanup, and I think that's a very positive thing for a county as a whole. I think there's some issues with how we possibly define hauling that we may be able to do without pulling the contract for Cal Waste, because our hands are tied with the Cal Waste contract. And moving forward, maybe we should bring this back to the board, have a discussion, give direction on how we want to move forward with addressing these issues so that we can move forward with providing a cleaner community for everyone across the county.
Okay,
Does
Mr.
that
Mill-
hit it
I'm sorry.
for you, Jack?
Pretty close. If it's okay, I'm just following up on what Ben said. Yeah, I'm not on the solid waste task force. You guys deal with this all the time. So I just I ran into a situation where I've got a local business owner who has a truck and a trailer and goes and helps realtors and old people clean out junk from under their house. These are people who can't afford the $1,000 box from Cal Waste, and it's a business license insured company, and she was stopped because she didn't have a hauler's permit, which made me look into 8.12, our solid waste ordinance, and yeah, there's all kinds of, this is a very old, out-of-date ordinance, and definitions have changed, and I think staff needs clear direction on where this board is. And so I would hope that through the Solid Waste Task Force, we could take on 8.12 as a group, and it's a lift, and it's a piece of legislation I think we have to take a look at. So I was hoping that this board would show some interest in agreeing to take a look at 8.12, not just because once I start pulling on the string on just my one example I learned from IWM and others, there's all kinds of other stuff going on that I had no idea of that made me think, yeah, this is something we have to take a look at. So I think my impression is that everybody on this board wants to clean up junk properties. We want to do it quickly and efficiently and affordably for people. If we don't do it, then we end up picking up those refrigerators on the side of the road or abating, which is always much more expensive, and we have to pay the bill. So I pulled this item not to dispute the Cal Waste contract, but rather to look at the enabling ordinance for the contract 8.12 and see if we can talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Gibb. Mr. Tuffanelli? Mr. Mills?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is something that has been going on, and it's at times quite controversial. I don't know if you recall, when we first got on the board, there was a lot of controversy regarding rate adjustments and how were we going to offset those, et cetera. It's not a question of what Cal Waste is doing. It's a question of what are the other pieces to the overall waste stream within Calaveras County, and that there is a need to revise 8.12 to bring it into alignment, because 2026 is coming up pretty quick. So looking at this contract and saying, well, we just don't need to do anything until a couple of years before, that's very short-sighted. I think we need to maybe poll the board to instruct staff to start a rewrite on 8.12 and bring it into some kind of current alignment. I have a lot of abatement properties within my district, and it is the people can't afford, just can't afford the hauling fees to do it. And so they end up on our system. I have one on Rock Creek Road that is just beyond the property owner's capacity to even do anything. It's just spiraled out of control, and you all have them in your districts too, but Cal Waste isn't the answer. 8.12 needs to be able to address that so that we don't get into abatements where we're doing cost recovery and then we have to stop because we don't have enough funds within our budget to handle that cost recovery. So we stop the project and the mess just stays there. So it's something that I would like to see a poll of the board to direct staff to do that.
Mr. Tuffanelli?
Yeah, I was going to pull this item, and Ben alluded to a lot of things that are going on right now. There's one business owner in my district that has an issue, and he runs a recycling business. And according to the code and this contract, he cannot legally put a bin on a steel fabrication company for them to put all their steel in for him to haul away. It's illegal, any container. Cal Waste supposedly has exclusive rights to that, the way this is written. And it's affecting a lot of different people because, as Jack said, you pull on one thread and all of a sudden it's being shut down and everything is going, it's just continuing. I think we need to look at this code and maybe redefine some of the verbiage in it to get around some of the things that need to be done. You're exactly right. Exclusively on this contract, there is no container that can be placed on any property other than Cal Waste's, period, the way it's written. And there's no hauling permits that can be issued other than for solid waste other than Cal Waste. So even if you were to get a container on there, you could not get a permit to haul that container out to Rock Creek or wherever, simply because this contract exclusively excludes any other permits being issued. The other issue on this particular item, I will be voting no on. We've gone through some very trying times for everybody here in the county, especially older people. I do not see this as a right time, even though they're indexed and it's tied to their index. There's a lot of other companies that are withgoing increases. simply because of the times that we're in. And I think Cal Waste needs to step up to the board and say, this year, because of where we're at and the hardships on people that can't even pay their rent, they can't pay their mortgage payment, they can't pay their car insurance payments, and the car insurance is foregoing their payments. I think Cal Waste needs to step up and forego this increase for this year and look forward to next year. So I will not be voting for this on those bases.
I don't need to take a poll, Mr. Mills. I think I can count. I heard 4 comments.
And you avoid having to take a poll.
But the issue that I have, and I understand we have a $150 fee that property owners pay. And we all know that that fee does not cover the cost of the recycle program or running of Milton. Okay, that being said, times change. Like I think the 8.2112 goes back to the early 2000s. I've had probably every HVAC and plumber in District 3 call me saying they'd like to be able to take water heaters and so forth that they take out to the transfer station. They would be willing to pay because they understand that they're doing it for a homeowner or a business instead of having to drive it all the way down to Milton. And I think that makes sense, and maybe it would tie into the hauler, the person that you talked about, the situation being that the people that have called me saying would be willing to pay X amount, $25, $50, whatever, for a water heater or a toilet or not a sink, but well, maybe a sink, whatever. And can we do it? And I'm thinking times change. Maybe we should look at it. It's not allowed. I understand why it isn't allowed. I understand we don't want the property owners that pay the $150 to subsidize someone because that's what we'd be doing. They're willing to pay, and I would like the Solid Waste Task Force to consider that when they review the policy. So that's my issue. Mr. Mills?
Thank you, Chair. There's another rub here. To clarify, not all property owners are paying the $150 fee.
No, I mean, if you're a second homeowner and you're not there, you can get a reduction. I understand that.
No, I'm simply saying is that there are a number of unimproved parcels that do make use of the transfer station, don't pay a fee. And so there's other discussions, I think, that have to be a part of this overview on revising this.
Yeah, I mean, I understand there's lots of components to it, but I think I hear that there's 5 of us would like this reviewed. And so to Mr. Alt, I think you have direction from the board that we would like this ordinance, among the many others, to be reviewed for changes.
Yes, Madam Chair.
And it,
Along with all the other ordinances that are ASAP.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
This,
Mr. Garamendi?
I'm sorry, but, one of the things that I think that we could probably help our community, because this is going to take some time. This is not a light
Correct.
lift. But I think that, it seems to me we're all in favor of having private enterprise fill this gap in service that doesn't exist, especially for people who can't do it. And we want to get this place cleaned up. That should be an ongoing priority. So I think it's important that staff understand that this is important to us. So let's work within the rules, but let's try to encourage business to move forward and get things going. I think specifically, for example, the small haulers, the people who are taking care of grandma's basement. We should not be turning away garbage from our landfill. If it's, they're bigger issues. Gary brought up one that's much larger than my little issue. But I think that we want to encourage people to clean up as much as we can.
No, I agree, absolutely.
The
Mr. Tuffanelli.
particular gentleman that I'm speaking of runs a recycling center. He had a bin on his property that he throws trash in. And his customers, when they bring their recyclables, they dump out and they put their bag or whatever, and it fills up. And he hauled it to Rock Creek and was turned away. Told him he didn't have a permit to haul his own trash from his own business to Rock Creek. So it is an issue that he had to call Cal Waste to have them pick the bin up and take it for him.
Mr.
It's
Olm,
an
I
issue.
think we're hearing that there's some short-term and long-term. Long-term would be rewriting 8.12, and then there's some short-term issues that Mr. Garamendi, Mr. Tuffanelli, and myself have given examples of. And I know our integrated waste person, Mr. Fariani, would be willing to discuss this, since he sent me an email and said, let's talk. Mr. Stopper?
After the meeting, I would like to talk to you about that offline. There's some other things with owning your own bin and being able to haul your own bin off your own property. That's not hauling under the definitions, but we'll talk about that offline. The other thing I want to bring up, Mr. Toffanelli, is you brought up some stuff about this contract, and I do see eye to eye with what you're bringing up. And let's say if this board were to all vote no right now, the option would be for the county to start paying it if Cal Waste does not amend what they're doing, the way I understand it, per the contract. So we would be pulling that from our general fund dollars. Sir.
Not necessarily. I do have an issue with this also on the fact of what it says. It says they're supposed to bring their increases to the board or to the county before April 1st. And they had it on their agenda and pulled it off and redid it. So they didn't get it in a timely, corrected thing in a timely manner to us. So there are some things that you can do if they don't turn it in a timely manner as far as us approving it and not approving it. I'm just personally stating my opinion and why I'm voting no for it. The money would come out of, ultimately, would come out of the recycling fees that they pay, or the other fees, the franchise fees that they pay, which could be assumed to be general fund dollars. You're absolutely correct. But there is some things that can be done according to this contract when they don't turn in for their increases in a timely manner, which they didn't, in my opinion, because they redid it. They pulled it off and brought it back.
I appreciate that you bringing that to my attention. That's something that I hadn't caught. Maybe we should have a discussion right now about that then.
We could.
Seriously, if that's in the contract and we have some leverage there, I definitely am willing to contemplate that, sir, and I'm very happy that you brought it up.
Well, you can recall, I'm looking at Supervisor Garamendi, the discussion that happened 2 years ago over this very same thing about where, if we don't approve the contract, where's the offset money going to come from? And so we went down the road of approving the contract because we simply didn't want to pull the money out of general fund to offset the loss.
No, it was like it.
Pardon me?
We didn't like it.
Oh, Mike.
Sorry, Dennis, we didn't like it.
Oh, we didn't like it one bit, but the point was is that we went along with it at that time, knowing full well that it was going to come back again simply because of the way the contract is written. And that was written and approved the year before the three of us got on the board. Yes. So we really didn't have any say in it.
I'd be curious what Gary's found.
Well, it says here, on or before April 1st, they're supposed to submit an application for a rate increase application. And then it goes on to say, the hauler's rate application shall be reviewed by the county, which shall adjust the rates to reflect the adjustments made in accordance with the agreement on Exhibit B. The Board of Supervisors shall approve such rate adjustments by June 30th of the contract year. The adjusted rates shall not take effect until the Board of Supervisors has approved such rates. And I'm contending that they did not turn it in by April 1st to allow the county to review it. As a matter of fact, they pulled it off and it's back on the last meeting. So I don't know how much, I guess Al can weigh in on how much we reviewed this, if we had a timely manner to review their presentation of what they pulled off versus what they put back on thoroughly. I see what they were using on their adjusted rates, but maybe you can weigh in on exactly what was reviewed and if it was in a timely manner by the county before it was presented to the board. And why, and why it was pulled off initially.
My understanding when we originally pulled it, that we had opportunity to review it, there were some errors and some details, and not necessarily their errors, but some of our some contribution on our behalf on some of the data that was in the staff report. I don't have further detail beyond that on it, but I'm not certain at this point I would be able to endorse the fact that they didn't have it in a timely manner and that the responsibility is all on them at this point. I'm trying to check with Paul as we speak. Okay. I don't see that he's a participant on the call. I appreciate that the language states that we may have an option, but I think that I think we had it originally and had opportunity to review it, and just through our own processes didn't have opportunity to get it completed.
So we were the ones that pulled the Calaveras.
That we may have an option, but I think.
Whose phone's on?
Can't hear it.
So this is, I'm sorry, this is Rose Barastianos calling in.
Hi, Rose.
Hi, and Cal Waste did provide us the rate prior to April 1st.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Mills? No?
It would be helpful when we're having these kind of discussions to have that contract in front of us, just to kind of like review and be sure what it says. That would have been very helpful in this agenda packet. So just a point.
Okay. Mr. Garamendi?
Madam Chair, do you need a motion?
Yes.
Public, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of clerk.
Sorry, thank you.
That was my bad.
Ms. Severuto, is there any public comment on this, please?
I don't see any, but you may want to wait just a moment.
We will.
Okay. The numbers are on the screen.
Good job.
It's not me.
It's a team sport.
While we're waiting for public comment, if you go to packet page 288 and G and failure to adjust rates by June 30th, there is a meet and confer option here. I'd look at subsection G and just read what that says.
I don't see any callers, Madam Chair.
Mr. Mills? Is there anything you wanted to address before I ask for a motion on this? Okay. Mr. Garamendi?
Madam Chair, with great reluctance and sadness, I will move this item.
Is there a second?
Also, with great reluctance, I will mirror Mr. Garamendi.
And it's with reluctance because I'm one of their customers and I have to pay the increase. I'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes on a 4-1 vote with Supervisor Tuffanelli in the nay. Thank you. I'd like to move to item 22.
Item 22 is from the Administrative Office to approve the fiscal year 2020-21 recommended budget.
Mr. Mills.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mills, did you want to take all the budget items at once or individually?
Well, maybe I should explain. The reason that I pulled these 4 items is that I went back on our last meeting during the budget hearings, and what I saw or heard in the budget hearings and the agreements that we had made didn't seem to come through in this, what we have in front of us. So that's the reason that I pulled it, specifically in the long discussion that we had with the Sheriff's Department and their various items. So I don't know if the sheriff's available to talk about those items.
All right, we'll take them individually. We'll take number 22.
Okay.
And what is it?
Do you want to read the item?
I did.
It is.
I did, and I do see that the sheriff is on the call.
Okay.
So on 2022, it's to approve the 2021 recommended budget. That's it.
And now I
So
don't see
do you have any questions or
Correct.
comments on this item?
Well, it has to do with the vehicles and also where certain monies are going to be coming from and what funds are being used. Doesn't match up with what was originally discussed and agreed to in our budget hearing. So,
And where specifically are you talking about the capital assets?
that,
Which is-
well, that's a separate item, but
Right.
in the vehicles for outfitting in the Patrol 320 budget unit, we're showing $545,000 rebudgeted there. The actual impact is not the entire 545, so there needs to be some type of a correction for the actual amount, the actual impact to the general fund. I'm just giving an example.
Okay.
I know
so-
the work crew van or the transport van, there's the outfitting of the Chevy Traverse. There's a Ford F-350 that needs to be outfitted, but a lot of this is going to come from AB 443. It's not general fund, yet we're not showing it that way. And AB 109 the same way. We're not showing it that way. So, Sheriff, did he want to weigh in on this one?
Let Mr. Alt, did you want to discuss this?
So I think Supervisor Mills is reading from a summary that Oscar has provided and Rick and Jim have provided to our office, which has much of the same detail. On Thursday of the budget hearings, the board did authorize $545,000 for the outfitting of these vehicles. At the time, both the sheriff and I at the meeting on Thursday morning originally presented to the supervisors on late Wednesday afternoon the $545,000 amount. As we work through potential solutions, and we're still talking about them Wednesday morning, what I suggested to the sheriff is that rather than confuse all of the issues that we had on the items for discussion on Thursday that we asked for, and ultimately the board did authorize the $445,000 so that we could move forward in the recommended budget and that we'd make appropriate adjustments as we came to the final budget. And I've since talked to Rick about that as well this morning.
This is Rick. I just wanted to weigh in. I agree with what Al just said. I just wanted the board to be aware of the actual cost, that was all.
I believe the 546,947 is the correct draw, what we voted for last Thursday.
I would concur with Mr. Toffanelli, but with, I'll let you finish first, sir. I apologize.
I'm done.
But, you know, with the adjustments that Mr. DeBasilio is proposing, that 545 would go down from our general fund, and he would want to use more AB 443 money, so that, you know, so what Mr. DeBasilio is reaching for is the fact that he doesn't want to take as much from the general fund. He wants to show that he's using more of his AB 443 money, and you know, in support of the times, I believe, with the budget. Al, would it be impossible for us to make an amendment to that fashion right now, or or is just the money transfers later going to suffice? Which is the least labor intensive for you, so that we can program this?
What I would recommend on this particular item is that the board take action on the appropriation, and we have already set a meeting with sheriff's staff, Under Sheriff Macedo and Oscar, and we'll meet with them next week and work out all the details for a transfer, the appropriate transfer to align this moving forward for the July 28th board meeting.
Thank you.
And I think the point is to acknowledge that AB 109 and AB 443 funds will be used, even though we, as a board, had committed that we would, in essence, make them whole at some point in the near future when we knew more in August. I just want to be sure that we're very clear that we're not going to be digging ourselves a hole that we can't get out of.
So on that particular item, my recollection is not that was where the board made the commitment to reimburse AB 443, but on the 4 new vehicles, 4 new Ford F-150s that the Sheriff's Department agreed to use AB 443 to, for lack of a better term, front load the financing for so that we could purchase them. That is the particular item that the board committed that we would review at mid-year to determine whether there was appropriate funding to backfill that or not. Rick, is my understanding correct on that, on the AB 443 items associated with budget item 22? That wasn't where our discussion revolved around the backfill of the funds. It was on the 4 new Ford F-150s, correct?
Correct. The if you want to call it the 545 was for vehicles that have already been purchased for their outfitting. There's 141,000, I think that would be for out of 443 to outfit the non-marked units. And then if you jump down to the item number, I believe it's 20, the heck it is, 22, or the one that talks about the $332,000. That is the new vehicles for the 2021 budget. That was the AB 443 front load. So in answer to your question, yes, it is for the new vehicles.
Mr. Mills?
Chair, does everybody have a copy of the email that's being discussed here with the CAO?
Dennis, I did not send that to everyone.
Would it be helpful for them to see it?
If you want to share that, absolutely. It would put things more into perspective, I think.
It's not really for me to share, it's your email.
No, I'm saying, absolutely.
What I'm asking, what is it in the email that needs to be clarified?
Sheriff,
Sheriff, if I might, this is Rick. It was just to show the separation of AB 443 funding from the 545,000 that Mr. Alt just talked about. The other issue is kind of a two-part issue. The first issue is the 545, and out of that 545, there's 141,000 that will be coming out of 443. That, as Mr. Alt talked about, would be dealt with at the July meeting. The other part of that is the 332,000 for the new 2021 marked Ford F-150s that I agreed to front load the AB 443 funding to get those purchased so that we don't end up having to reallocate that money next year because of the time frame it takes to purchase these vehicles. So the email just clarifies where the funding, where the AB 443 funding is coming in part of that $545,000. That's all. But I agree with everything that Al has said and what they're wanting to do. I think that's not a problem.
Okay. All settled on what you're going to be doing then, Sheriff?
Yes, sir. Mr. Alt and I have got everything all worked out.
Okay. Additionally, in the budget, we really didn't have any conversation on our future obligations to CalPERS. And I know that that's probably going to have some impact here very shortly. As everyone is fully aware, I'm not pleased with the idea of stripping Teeter completely or to be able to drop contingencies simply because of the cash flow implications. I had offered an option of looking at some of the staff positions that we'd never filled that were general fund to try to help with the balancing of contingencies. I know that didn't go anywhere with the rest of the board, but I still think that that needs to be part of the conversation. So.
Okay. Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the whole board would rather these things get worked out before they come in before they come before us here. So that's is what it is. But I'm reading this, Sheriff. Are you saying that we committed to? I'm just confused. We committed to 545. Now you're kicking in 140,000 at AB 443 dollars. You're not expecting those. The 4 patrol vehicles you put in the 443. We expect that we'll make you whole on that. But the 140, you're not planning on getting back, are you?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, there we go, Dennis. We just added something to our contingencies.
Right. Exactly.
We'll take it.
Thank you, Rick, for stepping up and taking that 545 down so much so that we didn't get into contingencies as much.
Absolutely. But if Mr. Toffanelli would like to give it back, I'll be pleased to take it.
I know the total funds you have in AB 443. It was from the meetings last week, Rick. So there's still plenty there that I can tap into when we get to August in the final budget. So.
Supervisor Toffanelli, would you like to listen?
I think we all remember that number.
1.2.
I have all the expenditures. We've been spending almost $500,000 a year out of 443 funding to keep that money from not having to come out of the general fund. So we can certainly talk about that offline if you'd like, Mr. Toffanelli.
Thank you, Rick.
Mr. Mills, did you have any others on item 22 or 23? No. Right.
Yes, I will be voting for this item as preliminary budget. I don't agree with some of the things in it, which we'll see when we get to August and when the state gets done with whatever they're going to do, and we're looking at our final budget, and we have everything closed, and we have some better projections. But going forward for the preliminary budget, I will be voting for it because it is preliminary.
Mr. Garamendi?
I would be willing, if Supervisor Toffanelli made a motion, I'd be willing, actually,
We need to ask for
Mills
public
pulled it,
comment.
Yeah,
Mr. Mills?
it's with great trepidation that I have voted no on 2 previous budgets, as you recall. And I will, like we talk about with the Cal Waste contract, I will have to hold my nose to vote yes, but knowing that the board will be serious when we get to August about getting this thing under control and getting it balanced. I have grave concerns with stripping Teeter down as far as we've done. And I just hope that everybody's got that in their radar when it comes to August, because I'm not going to go forward with it without it. That Teeter's got to be corrected. So, thank you.
Mr. Stopper?
Understood.
All right, if there's no other board comments on this, we'll open it up to any public comment.
So we have the numbers on the screen if anyone would like to call in. I don't see any callers, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a motion on 22 and 23 together, if there is one. Okay.
Take 24 or 25 as well. It's the same discussion.
Okay,
So-
that's fine. Is there, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Madam Chair, that we did not let any public callers know that we were going to be considering that other item, so maybe we should
Take it.
capture what they all are and then ask for public comment again, just to be on the safe side.
Sure.
Okay,
That's-
so if I'm understanding, we're going to take items 22, 23, and 25.
Did you want to take 28?
28 is a separate issue.
Okay,
Okay, so let me just go ahead and read those into
Yes.
the record.
Thank you.
So item 22 is to approve the fiscal year 2021 recommended budget. Item 23 is to adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of certain capital assets for fiscal year 2021. And item 26 is to adopt a resolution approving fiscal year 2021 recommended budget for special revenue funds. So we have the numbers on the screen. If any member of the public would like to make any public comment on these three items, they will be acted upon together.
okay. No public comment on this item. Do I have a motion on item 22, 23, and 25? I'll take them as one motion.
I'll move them, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Motion by Supervisor Tapanelli. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Garamendi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Move to item 28.
So item 28 is from Human Resources to adopt a resolution authorizing changes to the position control list for fiscal year 2021 recommended budget effective July 4, 2020.
Mr. Mills, you pulled this item?
Yes, Madam Chair. I remember in the discussion again with the sheriff that he wanted to move one dispatch clerk position. You have that, I think, on the email, to a senior dispatch. That was not done as part of this agenda item. I don't know if we need to make an amendment to the agenda item or how we're going to do it to fulfill that, but according to what it's being said here, on this particular position, the CAO was in agreement. I'd like to confirm with CAO Alt that he is in agreement with that change.
Sorry, trying to unmute. So you're reading from the email that I was in concurrence with that. My recollection was in the recommended budget, I didn't approve any positions going forward. Rick's recollection is that we discussed it on Thursday with the board, and the board has authorized that. And Rick has been in contact with Judy Hawkins, who is present here and unmuted, and has talked to Rick about updating the position control list. But the fact that the email indicates that there was some concurrence there, I actually removed it from the CAO's recommended budget originally, as I did all the positions.
Would it be something that possibly that we could bring back for discussion in August?
Actually, it's part and parcel to the meeting that I mentioned earlier with Under Sheriff Macedo and Oscar. So we'll take up all the items on the email that you have and have now forwarded it, and we'll bring back all the requisite transfers and adjustments that we need for the July 28th meeting in advance of the August study session and September final budget.
Thank you. I just recall the sheriff's discussion about how important that movement of that position to a senior dispatch was, and I didn't want to let it slip by because not having it on the list, it just would fall through the cracks. So bringing it back like this is to be sure that the discussion goes forward and we can find a way to get it done.
Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you very much. I hadn't paid much attention to this item, but I'm looking at the last item, public access TV, and we didn't discuss their budget in any detail. We went through this, and so I remember my recollection of it being relatively flat. So how did this get on this list, and this is the only item on the list that doesn't say how it's being funded? So is that coming out of general funds, and how did this happen? How?
So in terms of the funding, other than the franchise fee, the balance of that budget unit is general fund dollars. They were flat essentially because there was a large one-time expenditure last year that was substantially more than the delta for the salary increase. We were truing up a salary issue that had been occurring for some time. Judy, if you want to speak to the actual position allocation portion of the information, that would be great.
I'd be interested.
Okay, so when we had done a salary survey with SEIU during bargaining 2 years ago, a position in public access TV received an increase, which took that position actually higher than what the public access TV manager was receiving. We had brought this issue up when CAO Lutz was here, and the issue was not resolved at that time. We did a salary survey several months ago, and then we brought that information to the administrative office and recommended the salary change to bring him in line with what other managers with the same responsibility that he has. And that's the recommendation that's being brought forward.
Where's the numbers on that? Is there attachment to this that backs that up?
No,
I'm sorry. It feels like this just kind of got stuck in here.
So Human Resources gave that information to the administrative office.
That's correct.
And it was in the recommended budget, correct?
Somewhere in the 600 pages, I'm sure, but I just didn't. That was not called out because I remember we were talking about not trying to do that, not trying to reclassify everybody at this time of uncertainty. So, and I know we were pretty hard on other departments, and this one just kind of got through.
The request happened some time ago, and in fact, over a year ago before I was here. And quite frankly, it's taken that long for it to work through. It could have been brought forward probably at mid-year or shortly thereafter, but we put it off to bring it into the budget development process so that, frankly, at the end of the day, the work had been done, and we brought it forward to be fair to the individual involved, but the overall budget hasn't increased because of some other adjustments that were made in the budget. So what you're seeing here now isn't an increase over what you saw at the recommended budget.
Right, which is why it didn't stand out, because their budget looked flat. I didn't realize there was a reclass and a reduction somewhere else. Maybe we should have talked about that.
Mr. Mills?
That's all I have. I just wanted to be sure that there was some continued discussion on that senior dispatch position. And Supervisor Garamendi, I appreciate you bringing up the...
I would like to have a longer conversation about PATV, but maybe that's an August discussion.
So a more robust conversation regarding PATV and its function or operations, staffing, et cetera, just take another look at it.
Restrictions on those monies that we get for the franchise fees. I mean, we've all learned a lot about communications over the last couple months.
Supervisor, would you be interested in a study session on that?
I think we can include it as part of, maybe in part of the August budget. We start going through, because it's going to be a budget question.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions or comments on this?
With that, we can take public comment, but I'll make the motion to approve.
Ms.
So to open it up for public comment, we'll put the numbers on the screen. They are up there now, so if any member of the public would like to call in, now is the time to do so. And if we can wait just a moment to allow people to dial in if they are planning to.
Okay, hearing no public comment, I'll bring this item back. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Supervisor Mills, second.
Second.
By Supervisor Tuffanelli, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes on a 4-0, 1 nay.
Gary got one, I can do one.
That's fine.
Badge of honor, right?
I explained my no.
I'm happy to.
Got it. Okay. We're going to take a 10-minute recess.
So does when someone
Y'all ready?
Yeah, talking to your mic.
Okay, I'd like to reconvene the meeting. We're on item 29. It's an update of the fairground sewer system upgrade. Mr. Mills, you brought this item to the board.
Yes, I believe Lori Giannini is available to make the presentation for us today, to give us some kind of idea of what the money that we have allocated from the PG&E Fire has brought us and brought the fairgrounds. So I will let Lori make the presentation.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good morning. I am glad to see all of you. Before we get into the sewer, I just wanted to give a couple of thank yous. As all of you are aware, the cancellation of the 2020 Calaveras County Fair was an economic loss to the fairgrounds of about $300,000 and about a $5.2 million loss to the community and spending activity, and it was pretty tough. But I want to report that with the help of the California Department of Food and Ag, John Osborne from OES, Kristen Stranger, Dr. Kaleda, we were able to put on a virtual livestock show and sale, and a group of really dedicated volunteers, and that all those animals got into our local food chain, and that sale generated $500,000 for the youth of our community. So Calaveras County needs to be very proud of that. They did a tremendous job. Moving into our sewer, on April 9th of 2019, the Board of Supervisors minutes reflect a $1 million allocation to the Calaveras County Fairgrounds to improve, replace, or enhance our current sewer system. And at that time, you asked me to have an update in the first 12 months. I have met with Supervisor Mills and Supervisor Garamendi regarding our update. We had it planned for a March board meeting, but it did get pulled from the agenda. At this point, we have encumbered $137,530 of the $1 million. We've encumbered that. We have not been reimbursed for $17,000 of those dollars, and currently asking for an allocation so we can finish phase 1. I'd like to turn this over right now to our engineer, Matt Ospital, who has just been an amazing partner for the fairgrounds, and let him kind of explain where we're at, because he'll do a much better job than me. Matt?
Thank you, Lori. Good morning, Madam Chair and Supervisors. I just kind of wanted to give you a brief update on where we are on the project. We decided to break this into 2 phases. Phase 1 being kind of the collection system, the sewer piping throughout the fairgrounds, and then phase 2, the larger project, which is to replace the septic system. We went out to bid with phase 1. We got a local contractor, Cole Tiscornia Construction, and the Fair Board awarded that, and we're hoping to get started at the end of the month. We need to submit the signed contract to the county in order to, I don't know the process, but to pretty much to move those funds forward to the fair. Looking at the phase 2 project, we've been working with the Environmental Health Department, Matt Poole. He's been very helpful, and it's been great to work with him. Initially, we're going to look at the old runway behind the arena for the leach field system, and it just didn't work. So we went back to our original design, which is the hillside between the main parking lot and the RV park. And we did the profile inspections with Matt and got a good spot there to do that. So we're wrapping up that design, and as soon as we get done with phase 1, we're going to put phase 2 out to bid. So if there's any questions, I'm here to take any questions from the board.
Any questions? Mr. Garamendi.
I've got a follow-up question for Lori later on after your presentation, but Matt, how's this going to, will this increase the capacity for, when we have our next disaster, we have to evacuate people or put CAL FIRE at the fairgrounds, be it in Calaveras or a disaster in Calaveras or Tuolumne County, and sort of what does that bring our attendance to, our capacity to, and tell me how that all works.
Yes, we did look at that, and we planned for kind of a full build-out, we call it, from a subdivision standpoint. But yes, it'll definitely incorporate all that, and we even looked at more events at the fair and how to handle that, looking at peak flows the system could hold. There's going to be new septic tanks to handle the peak flows.
Okay, and so basically, if we had another Butte fire, we're not going to overwhelm the system with this new system. And the system is going to last us, I figure I probably got about actually 30 more years. It's going to outlast me, right?
Yes, definitely. And the key was the phase one. We fixed the old pipes where we're getting the I&I, the inflow and infiltration, which is rainwater, groundwater getting into the system that doesn't need to be in there. So that's going to have a huge impact on it as well.
Do we get to have a ribbon cutting for a sewer system?
I think we should.
Thanks, Matt.
Mr. Stopper?
Good. The drain water and the storm water getting out of it really lowers the amount of million or total gallons coming in per day. This is the more beneficial approach as to the other possibility to connecting up to Angels Camp Sanitary District. That I know there was a couple different ideas floated around when we started this out. So this is your, and I'm sure you're very well aware of the best approach, Mr. Hospital. This is our best approach as opposed to hooking up to Angels Camp Sanitary.
Matt, I can take that one. Supervisor Stopper, we did initially meet with the city. As you know, the fairgrounds is a county facility. Not a county, it's a state facility, but it is in the county and not in the city limits. There was a lot of annexation that was required, that we'd have to go through several properties. The initial cost was just not something we could do, and also the monthly billing would have been a hardship on the fairgrounds. So we went back to our engineer and said, let's look at alternatives, and that's how we got here.
Very good. I appreciate the answer.
Mr. Hospital, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Could you say hello to your mother for me, please?
I will.
Thank you. Mr. Mills, did you have something?
Mr. Hospital, I can't say hello to your mother, but in the total of the two phases, are you going to be able to get this project done with the $1 million, or is there, give us some idea of where you're going to be at?
It's going to be really close, and I'm going to try to make it happen. The design kind of went a little over than I thought, so I donated a little time to the fair, engineering cost-wise, so we'll do our best to make it happen. Once I kind of have the final design for phase two, better estimate, we can report back to you guys, but that's my goal. I don't want to have to ask for more money.
Thank you. What do you figure the life expectancy on that leach field is going to be?
20 to 30 years plus.
Okay. And would there be an ability to work with John Osborne and maybe even CAL FIRE for the resiliency location to see if there can be some offset payments somewhere in the future to help with this whole thing? Because the project is going to be able to provide a more stable location, and I've heard numbers as high as 6,000 people could be located there on a short-term basis. I would want to know that the state and other people would consider it important enough to be able to help to ensure the financial solvency of this particular project and the fairgrounds. Maybe that's more of a question for Lori.
Yes, Supervisor Mills, I have actually taken some preliminary numbers that our engineer has provided and have applied for some grant funds through, I believe it was AB5. It is still in the review process, but we are hoping to get funds through the state to help supplement the project.
Well, please keep us informed if you run into a difficulty. I don't want this project to simply not be able to be completed because you're a couple $100,000 short or whatever happens here. There's a big commitment involved, and I want to be sure that it's completed.
Mr. Garamendi?
Yeah, I just concur. We don't have any other money, so we have to try to keep it on, we have to be on budget. My other question, though, is not directly related to the sewer system that we're setting up, but I'd like to know what the fair is hearing from the state on their budget and any conversations that may be going on, or from your associations. Obviously, this board appreciates the fair a great deal, and we all think they're going to be jumping frogs long after they forget who we were. And that's a good thing. But what's the state going to do to you now?
Well, we haven't got finalized yet, but the governor's budget that was supposed to roll out on the 15th had $40 million in the prelim, had $40 million in it for fairs to actually help with layoffs and PERS liabilities. Our team has been, our legislative team has been working to try to get some of that funding freed up. You know, it's all relative, but the fairs like San Diego and Orange County, where they have multiple unions they're dealing with, and without events, which almost all fairgrounds have been dark really since March. Without events in the annual fair, the financial hardship on fairs, as you can imagine, is tremendous. So the governor saw that there was a financial hardship, and his initial solution was to pay for layoffs and liabilities. The problem with that is when we are able to open up, no matter what that looks like, we're going to need people. And so it's kind of a catch-22. We are encouraging our folks to write their ledge, also write the governor, also write our federal representatives on how important the fairgrounds are. You know, an example for us is right now, we have been doing CAL FIRE training for a long time. The weekends we've been doing motherlode fire training. We also have the COVID-19 testing here, and during the Walker fire, I was called by Red Cross, I was called by CAL FIRE. We were deployed and then released the next morning. That's a conversation we kind of need to have as leadership. I emailed Mr. Alt last week, but the fairgrounds is the place for all of these things to happen. So we are really, and our board is really working hard to make sure that we can stay viable financially and just make it through. I'm hoping that in the fall we can start having more events. Right now we can have a few if they're the cultural ceremonies, those kinds of things we can have with our safety precautions in place. So like for everyone, it's a hard go right now.
Lori, I think this board values the fair. Obviously, they put $1 million investment into it. If there's, during this budget process, I have unconfirmed discussions and whatnot about changing status of the fair and that conversation. And so if that conversation comes up, I certainly hope your board would be willing to meet with our board, our designated leaders, and really work it out. I mean, the fair is vital to the next 150 years of this county, and let us be your partner. We're obviously willing to invest in you guys already.
And in the governor's narrative of his proposed budget, he did talk about that, about, as we all know, fairs are neither fish or fowl. We're sort of state agencies, but we're not really, and there's all of these things, and, you know, should we become a special district? There's all of these things that are looked at that I feel like, Jack, as you know, are looked at every 10, 15 years, they tried to figure out what to do with fairgrounds. So thank you for your support. And on behalf of our board of directors, we really appreciate the Board of Supervisors investment, and we want to do the right thing by our county.
Thank you, Lori.
I do have a question, Madam Chair. Yeah, Lori and Matt, I don't know if it's either one of you can answer what the total time frame is for phase 1 and phase 2 and being complete with the entire project. Is there some projections on that as to when you expect to have it completed?
Yes, so phase 1, we're going to start in July. I don't see it lasting more than a month to complete that. And most likely, wrap up the design this fall and go out to bid December, January for phase 2 and have it complete next summer.
Thank you.
Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Chair. I do have one off-the-wall question for Lori. Are you folks broadband challenged out there?
I wouldn't say challenged. We do have, we are counted as our provider. There are times, however, we are hardwired in case of a fire camp or something like that. CAL FIRE has already made those changes to the facility.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure that your bandwidth was capable of handling the capacity that you could potentially put in that site.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, too, for both of you.
Any other comments of the board? Any public comments?
So we'll put the numbers up on the screen in case anybody wants to call in. They should use that number now.
Mr. Hospital, will this all be done before Frog Jump next year?
I would love to have it done, but I can't say. I can give you an update in a few months.
Yeah. So does that mean there'd have to be a lot of porta potties at the fair?
Oh no, it can handle the fair. It's just.
Well, if Matt, if you are challenged for area-wise when you get to phase 2, Marita is very good friends with the guy that owns the property on the other side of the fence.
Well, we did have at the fair one year, Mrs. Jeanine, if you remember that porta potty decorating contest.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had an outhouse race where we challenged Amador County Fair, and we won.
In fact, I decorated a porta potty with an hospital. I did. I decorated one of their porta potties when the fair had their porta potty decorating contest. Oh no, Ms. Everett, do we have any public comments? This conversation needs to stop. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Mr. Mills, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, other than thank you to Lori and to Matt for the work that you're doing on this project. We know that it will benefit long after this board and other future boards will come and go, as Mr. Garamendi has said. And we would like to be sure that it is, again, on time and under budget.
Mrs. Giannini, Mr. Hospital, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay, let's move to item 30.
Item 30 is from the Administrative Office. Pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 13869.7B, the Board may choose to provide comments regarding Calaveras Consolidated Fire Protection District's proposed ordinance, which would become part of the district's public hearing record.
Madam Chair, this item is before us. As you may recall, Murphy's Fire did a similar item some weeks back, and we're fortunate to have Calco Fire Chief here, Mr. Richard Dickinson. You can see he's looking nice in his officer's uniform there, and he's going to speak to the item if the board has any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the board on this item? We want to see the
Rich?
chief in his uniform, please.
Yeah, Rich, we want to see you in your uniform, so.
I don't have the coat, a little hot today. Yeah.
Okay. Chief, is there anything you would like to add to what's before us?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate your time. More importantly, I appreciate the hard work that Sarah did with us. This has been another arduous project for us, and I'm really looking forward to having the ordinance in place so that I can start to work on our improved and unimproved parcels for mitigation of the, I want to say the weeds. You know.
Mr. Tuffanelli.
Yeah, Rich, this is a long time coming, as you know. It started before you took over. It started a long time ago, and here it is. I'm so glad it's here now and going forward with it, and you did a tremendous job on it, and congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mr. Stopper.
I'm going to have to mirror Mr. Toffanelli's comment. It's a long time coming. Appreciate the work you've done to bring it to this point, and also I do need to say thank you to Miss Edwards. And the work that she's done to help facilitate this. I mean, it took a little work from you and a little work from us, and keep the bug in our ear, and it's moved forward quite rapidly in the last few months, and, take it to the finish line, sir, and we'll be appreciative.
Thank you.
Chief, were there any concerns from your board on this?
No, Sarah's given us a good, I'm going to say a roadmap for success from this point forward to, obviously we got to reach out to the community, but she's given us a good roadmap on things that I need to do to complete the process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mills?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chief, be sure the brass stays polished, as you know. I want to be sure that all of the fire districts that are engaging in this type of an ordinance are generally on the same page, and I believe that they are. You're one of, 3 now that have this type of an ordinance in place?
I believe so.
And so with it is, this is just a lot of paper. The hard work now begins to bringing everything into alignment, and it's going to take a lot of time for your staff and public education to be able to understand the value that this kind of an ordinance will bring to the entire area, and hopefully it will help to reduce some of your fire insurance fees as well.
Yes, and I'm excited about having transparency, and again, as I'm going to lean on Sarah, she has been very helpful through this. Even though it has been challenging and we've had to rewrite it a couple times, I think she's given us a very good roadmap for success with our ordinance.
Well, thank you to your board, your staff, and yourself for taking this challenge on, and look forward to the great results it's going to bring to your district, and hopefully will be an incentive to those that haven't yet taken on this challenge to be able to bring it into their districts as well. Help us all.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions, Mr. Tuffanelli?
And Rich, I'm surprised, is Kim sitting next to you? Is he?
No, Kim, he's on a Type 1 Fed team, and they were deployed yesterday to the quarter fire. They stood them down, and now they have the team in Sacramento under reposition right now.
Well, make sure you say congratulations to him too.
I will do
and
that.
Thank you for the hard work. And with that, Madam Chair, I know you have to go to public comment, but I will make the motion.
Which can I do first?
You can
Mr.
go to public
Duffin?
comment.
Thank you. Ms. Everett, is there any public comment on this item?
We just put the number on the screen, so if any member of the public would like to call in, now is the time. If they have comments on the proposed ordinance for Calaveras Consolidated Fire Protection District. Madam Chair, I don't see any callers.
Second.
I have a motion by Supervisor Tuffanelli, a second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
I'd like to move to item 31. 31 and 32 will sort of be discussed in tandem. And,
Madam Chair?
well, item 32 needs to be discussed.
Yeah, that's the point. 32 needs to be
I
discussed
know.
first.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Would you like me to read them?
Sure.
Okay. So item 31 is from the Planning Department to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution approving administrative use permit 2019-045 for New Singular Wireless LLC. Item 32 is from Planning to conduct a public hearing, adopt mitigated negative declaration, and adopt an ordinance amending the zoning of APN 056-008-003 from unclassified to rural residential for New Singular Wireless LLC, and authorize publication of a brief description and map of the reclassified property. And as we said, item 32 would need to be acted upon prior to 31, or you can act upon them together, I would think.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mauer, did we receive a phone call or an email from the property owner regarding possibly moving these items out?
I'm not aware of any item that we've received from the applicant. Scott, have you received anything from the applicant indicating a desire to continue this item?
I have not received anything.
Okay, thank you. I will now open the public hearing on item 32, and I know 32, 31 could somewhat meld together. Mr. Spear, did you want to take the lead on this?
All right. I have a presentation. Like you said, 32 and 31, I'm kind of putting them together. The stuff for the zoning amendment is first in a presentation, but it goes right into the use permit afterwards. So let me share my screen here. There it goes. All right. This is planning project 2019-045, which is a zoning amendment and administrative use permit for AT&T. The subject property is 2.5 acres and is located at 2103 Falcon Mine Road in Murphys. Here is an aerial view of the property. The project is a zoning amendment to rezone the property from unclassified to rural residential and an administrative use permit to install a new telecommunications tower and supporting ground equipment. The general plan land use designation for the subject parcel is Rural Transition B. The RTB designation, as described in the general plan, is to be similar to Rural Transition A, but on a smaller scale. The description for RTA states that it identifies areas of existing neighborhoods and that the primary use is residential, but may include small agricultural operations for personal or small-scale commercial use. The compatible zoning districts in the RTP designation are RR and RA with a minimum density of 5 acres. Here is a map of the area's land use designations. As you can see, the parcel in question, shown outlined in red, shares the same designation with other parcels of similar size to the east and west. And remember this map, we'll get back to it in a minute. The general plan does discuss telecommunication and cellular facilities. Implementation measure LU5A encourages stealth construction to be incorporated into the design of the towers. Stealth construction is when the tower is designed to appear as something else, usually a tree. Policy PF 7.5 encourages greater telecommunication services in rural areas of the county, and implementation measure PF 7E encourages new towers to facilitate future co-location. Concerning zoning, the subject parcel is currently zoned U. The U zone is designated as an interim zone to be used until a suitable permanent zone can be established. County code specifically states that the U zone is intended to apply to lands until a more precise zoning is adopted. As mentioned earlier, the only 2 zones that are allowed in the RTP designation are RA and RR. The proposed telecommunications facility is an allowed use with the approval of an administrative use permit in both of these zones. In determining which zone is more appropriate for the subject parcel, one must look at the requirements and purposes for each zone. The RA zone's stated purpose and code is to be a district in which an equal emphasis is assigned to residential and agricultural uses. It is to provide lands for small-scale and personal-scale farming and ranching, as well as larger residential parcels. The RR zone is stated to provide lands for personal ranches in which the residential use is the primary land use. This zone is established to permit small-scale farming primarily for personal use and not as the primary use for the property. The primary use of the subject property is a single-family residence with no agricultural development present. This area of the county consists of numerous parcels of similar size and use. Some of these parcels are also zoned U, but the majority of these similar parcels are zoned RR, as can be seen in this zoning map of the area. The RR zone parcels are orange, with the subject parcel once again outlined in red. Okay, so the general plan map that we saw earlier, if you compare these two, it's quite noticeable how the subject parcel is tied to these RR zone parcels in the general plan. It is staff's determination that the RR zone is the most appropriate for the subject parcel because RR is compatible with the general plan, is stated specifically to apply to parcels where agriculture will not be the primary use, and because of the close proximity of similar parcels that are currently zoned RR. Moving on to the proposed telecommunications facility. The proposed project consists of a 100-foot telecommunications tower with 12 panel antennas and 2 microwave dishes, having space for possible future co-location for other carriers. Other improvements include the addition of an enclosed air-conditioned electronic shelter and a standby generator. The 30 by 35-foot lease area will be enclosed by a 6-foot tall wooden fence. As can be seen on the site plan, the facility will be located near Falcon Mine Road off of an existing driveway. To better see where it will be, I've lined up the site plan with the aerial view of the property. All right. The original application proposed a 120-foot tower constructed to appear as a water tank. After the objections of various local residents in the earlier stages of the project, the applicants agreed to modify the construction and now proposes a 100-foot tower and to utilize a more traditional method of stealth construction, having the tower appear as a pine tree. The surrounding vegetation is a mix of oak and pine, and it was determined that a pine tree would blend with the surroundings better than a water tank. Visual simulations of the towers were provided, and as you can see, the difference between a tank, a tree, and the height reduction. And this is from multiple angles. And this smaller, reduced size is what is currently being proposed. The operation of a telecommunications facility will generate noise due to the on-site emergency generator and the air conditioning units needed for the electronic equipment. This project is required to meet the restrictions of the county noise ordinance, which limits noise to 60 decibels during the daytime hours and 50 decibels at night. A noise study was conducted analyzing the noise that will be generated at this location for the proposed project. It was determined that the project can comply with the noise ordinance if certain noise dampening measures are in place, namely housing the generator in an enclosure and installing sound dampening on the fence. These sound control measures are a condition of approval for the project. Access to the site has been found to be adequate with minimal impact on the local infrastructure. The maintenance of the site will add 2 to 4 vehicle trips per month. As a condition of the project, any damage to local infrastructure during the construction and installation of the facility will be repaired. The County Public Works Department has reviewed this project and has no concerns. This project is also expected to comply with all other applicable county codes and ordinances, including the Environmental Health Department's requirement to file a hazardous materials business plan for the fuel that it is to be stored at the generator. Pursuant to California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, county staff prepared an initial study and mitigated negative declaration that evaluated the impacts of both the zoning amendment and the administrative use permit. This analysis found 2 potentially significant impacts requiring mitigation. These were the aesthetic and noise impacts related to the telecommunications facility. The aesthetic impacts are mitigated to being less than significant by conditioning the tower to utilize stealth construction as a tree and by reducing the height. The noise impacts are being mitigated by requiring sound dampening to ensure the noise levels are compliant with the county noise ordinance. The initial study and mitigated negative declaration was distributed for a 30-day public review and comment period, and only standard comments from various government agencies and departments were received during this time. However, one comment from the public was received right after this review period. The comment letter submitted by Dan Shanner, a nearby resident, had a number of concerns in regards to the proposed telecommunications facility. The concerns listed were possible negative health effects from RF fields, the aesthetic impacts of the tower, and the possible reduction of local property values. Other comments have been received since this time, which I believe the board is aware of. Their concerns closely resemble those of Mr. Shanner. Mr. Shanner was concerned with possible negative health effects from the radio frequency fields emitted from cellular facilities. Federal standards are in place for cellular facilities in regards to radio wave and microwave emissions, with local government being preempted by federal law from either conditioning the project or requiring mitigation concerning these emissions. The applicant has provided the county with an exposure assessment certified by a registered engineer that states the facility in question will comply with these FCC standards. As a result, the validity and scope of such effects are not being pursued. The concerns Mr. Shanner voiced regarding aesthetic impacts involve the appearance and height of the tower. Mr. Shanner did not like the proposed water tank and was concerned that the tower would loom over the neighborhood. These concerns were addressed in the secret document with the mitigation measures reducing these impacts. Mr. Shanner's concern of reduced property values is stated to be in relation to the aesthetic impacts a telecommunications tower may create. As previously mentioned, the mitigation measures outlined in the secret review address this impact. Mr. Shanner concludes his letter with suggested mitigation for these impacts. The mitigation includes stealth construction of the tower, providing 2 free cellular phones with service plans, providing free internet service, and providing a monetary payment of half of what is being paid to the site's property owner for all area residents. It is staff's determination that the mitigation outlined in the secret review is adequate to sufficiently address the aesthetic impacts. The other mitigation suggested by Mr. Shanner is outside the scope of the environmental review and does not address any identified environmental impact. This project was brought before the Planning Commission on May 14th. After consideration of the project, the Commission passed a resolution on a 5-0 vote to recommend the Board of Supervisors to approve the project. To conclude, this project is a zoning amendment to change the zoning from U to RR. This proposed change is consistent with the general plan and compatible with the surrounding area and the uses currently on the parcel. The second portion of the project is a telecommunications facility consisting of a 100-foot stealth pine tower and supporting equipment. The facility is also consistent with the general plan and meets all applicable standards in county code. The zoning amendment and administrative use permit were reviewed in accordance with provisions of CEQA and found to have a less than significant effect on the environment with mitigation measures put in place for aesthetics and noise. In light of this, staff recommends the Board of Supervisors adopt an ordinance to amend the zoning from U to RR, adopt a mitigative declaration, authorize the publication of the summary notice, and approve the administrative use permit to allow the proposed facility.
Thank you. Are there any board questions or comments on this? I do. Mr. Spear. The height was reduced to 100 feet from what was requested by the Singular or AT&T. My understanding is they said if it was reduced beyond the 115, it would make the project impractical. Is there a change? What created it to go from 115 down to 100? And how does that dovetail with what AT&T was saying?
I'm sure the applicant can elaborate further when she speaks later, but my understanding is as they originally envisioned the project, 115 was as low as they wanted to go, but in light of objections from local property owners, they're willing to take it down further.
And that means reducing their capability of service.
I believe so. Ashley, you might want to comment on this.
Hello, thank you, Scott Spear. You are correct. We did start off with at 115 feet.
Wait. I'm sorry, who's speaking?
This is Ashley Smith with Epic Wireless Group.
Oh, okay, thank you.
To speak in regards to what Scott was talking about with the height was reduced to 100 feet to lessen the burden to the community in this area. And although it was AT&T's goal to stay with the 115 feet, we did work with AT&T and the radio frequency engineers, and it was determined that the height of 100 feet would still work for this area.
Okay. On the noise, when you use the word dampening, and it'll be whoever, I'm assuming Mr. Spears comments, is this the same requirement that we do for the cannabis grows for their generators?
To a degree, the generators are just need to meet the requirements. I'm not too well versed in all the requirements of the cannabis code because I don't deal with it too often. But yes, the noise study stated that as long as they're in a noise and the generators are in an enclosure, believe it was a type 2 noise enclosure is what they called it, that they would be able to meet the noise level requirements required by code. And so as such, that's a requirement of approval.
Okay. Excuse me. Going to some of the comments, thank you very much for sending all the letters to us. I appreciate that. Mr. Tudbury, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, said that he did not sign any letter of agreement regarding access and the utility on his 230-foot portion of Falcon Mine Road. I didn't see anything in staff report that required that. Am I missing something that he wrote in his letter?
Basically, the way that sort of works is however AT&T gets their utilities to the site is kind of between AT&T and the local utility providers and local owners of easements. That's not really part of our approvals today, and that's what that is concerning.
Okay. Ashley, can I ask you to comment on, is there a possibility of moving the tower further back on the property and not so close to Falcon Mine? And would that be agreeable to AT&T and to the property owner?
So we did work with the property owner and AT&T to determine if there was another location further away from Falcon Mine Road. It would have a higher elevation as well if we pushed it back. Unfortunately, the slope of the property will not allow construction to work. It's just way too big of a slope for the work that needs to be done on the telecommunications facility to work on those locations further outside of Falcon Mine Road.
Mr.
And can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair and Supervisors. This is Julie Tone, Director of External Affairs for AT&T California. And I also wanted to add that when we do extensive site planning and our engineers look at the location, this particular site build is to provide not only our wireless coverage, but also FirstNet for our first responders, our public safety network, and then also to high-speed broadband internet. So it's very critical that we maintain the same location so that we can cover the maximum amount of living units possible to provide those services. So it would not be feasible for us, and nor would we want to, for our purposes of providing this location and the services from AT&T to your community residents.
Okay, we understand that, and I think all of us understand the need for cell towers. I'm not questioning the need at all. What I'm asking is, was there any way to move it further back on the property, understanding that would have to be an agreement with AT&T or whoever their agent is and the property owner?
And thank you, but unfortunately that won't be able to allow us the maximum capabilities that we need to provide multiple services to the community we're trying to serve there. So, and as Ashley had stated, due to the sloping and other issues, it wouldn't be our desire to relocate that to another area, nor would it meet the guidelines and the engineering studies that we have conducted to be able to provide those services.
Okay, thank you. I mean, this is a controversial project for the neighborhood. I understand. They always are, no matter where you put a cell tower. I just want to be respectful of the concerns of the neighborhood.
Yes, and thank you. And Madam Chair, AT&T cares very much about the community we're serving as well, and that's why Ashley and our team did a great job at reducing that height, providing another alternative to the aesthetic look there from the water tank to the monopine. And so we are doing our best to meet the requirements and, receive acceptance from the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mauer,
Yes.
since Mr. Spear is not familiar with cannabis, the requirement for the commercial growers on their generators is very tight. What I'm trying to get at is that should be the same for this project as it is for the generator enclosures for the commercial ag product.
So in this case, the standard that we've applied to this proposal is actually the same, if not higher, than what was required for cannabis cultivation. They have to meet the standard at the property line during different times of day. It varies, from nighttime hours to daytime hours. This is also only used for a backup generator. And so the generator is maybe tested once a month for a short period of time and would only kick on when there is a power outage and they need to maintain power to the facility in order to provide adequate transmission for communications. The problem we had with the cannabis growers was that they were running, in some cases, 24/7 to operate lights and pumps and those kinds of things. So there was a much higher issue regarding the noise generated from those the facilities on cannabis farms. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine, as long as it was as strict as it could be, because this project is right near Falcon Mine Road. It's not set back. So I just want to make sure that the noise for the neighbors around there would be. And
that is why the noise attenuation measures are required as a condition of this administrative use permit.
Okay.
And it's different than the cannabis farms.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board questions on this? Mr. Tuffanelli?
Yeah, in regards to where it's being placed next to the road, the explanation, I don't totally agree with it. I think it's being placed next to the road because it's easier to service there. It's right there. When a service truck or any maintenance needs to be performed on it, you just go right up to the road. I'm looking at the lot, and I see a house right in the middle of the lot. And if you're talking about slope issues or anything else, how they build the house, certainly you can grade a small area for what is needed if you need to move it back. It looks like there's some areas that could be accessible. I think it's simply being placed there for ease of service right next to the road versus anything going further in, having maybe some difficulty or some issues performing maintenance on the thing. So just looking at it, I think it could be moved back off the road. And I think that's one of the issues that a lot of the letters that we received had to do with the proximity of it and having to drive by it and see it sitting right there next to the road. Again, they built a house. You're not building a house. You look right at this lot. I'm looking at package page 409, the aerial view, and that house they built is right in the middle of that lot. So if they could build a house there, you can certainly put a cell tower up.
The house is up on a knoll.
Yeah. Put the cell tower up there. I think it's a thing of ease, being right off the road is the main reason and it wasn't said that way, but to me, looking at it, that's why it's next to the road. It's easy for them to maintain and service.
Mr.
Thank you. This is Ashley Smith again with Epic Wireless Group. So we, in regards to any location to the north of the proposed facility, also the northwest of the facility, that was what I was speaking on in regards to the slope. We did look at another area in kind of a field on the property, and unfortunately we were unable to go on that location as far as real estate with the property owner. This is the best location on the property for this facility, and is agreeable with the property owner and AT&T.
Mr. Mills?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm going to refer to page 422 of our packet, showing or delineation of the boundaries of this particular project. I would ask the question is, would you be able to build a house or another structure on that same footprint with those same setbacks off of the road? Mr. Maurer?
I'm sorry, I was trying to bring up some LiDAR topography. Let me get back to that page. What was the page again, sir?
422.
422.
Because I'm seeing the road easement there, and then right at the road easement line, probably within about 5 feet, is the beginning of the project. I'm not certain that we would permit a project that close to a boundary line in any other situation.
Well, the short answer is fences and things of that nature are allowed in setbacks. The facility itself is required to meet all applicable setback requirements.
I know that the Falcon Mine Road Association, which is not, I think on page 419, if you look at that very closely, you'll see in orange over the left, El Camino Casal, et cetera, that's where the road association, but that I know that that is not a county maintained road, but that the road association has been paving and maintaining Falcon Mine Road for a number of years. I see that they're stating something about 2, maybe 3 vehicles per month for servicing. They're going to then, the problem is that since it's not in the road association's boundary and it's not part of the county maintained road system, if there's need to repair it, how are we as a county going to work that out?
So the condition of approval requires them to fix any damage done to the road based on construction. There are provisions of our code that requires when a private road is used for non-residential use that we analyze the potential impact from the additional traffic from the non-residential use to see if it would have a significant impact on the road. And the additional handful of trips per month was determined not to be a significant increase over the 7 to 10 vehicle trips per day that a residence would generate. And so we did not require any additional conditions that would address ongoing maintenance other than what the property itself is required to participate in the road association.
Well, I just don't want to walk us into an untenable situation like Fowler Peak and Stallion and what goes on up there, that literally we have no way to do any cost recovery, or even the CSA2 doesn't have a way to do cost recovery for some of those towers that are being serviced up there. And
I realize that that's that's a problem out there. It's quite a different situation based on the number of facilities are up on that peak, and that condition of that provision of our code may very well have been created in response to that situation where over the years many towers have been installed on top of that mountain, and it has caused a significant road impact to the local road association in that situation.
I don't bring up Fowler to kind of derail the conversation. I just want to be sure that there is a way to do cost recovery for maintenance should there be a need to do so, that we're not going to end up in some type of litigation to get it done in the future because we didn't plan for it today in our discussion. I noticed that the pine tree on Bruner Hill north of Angels Camp is substantially higher than the rest of the surrounding trees in that area. is this 100-foot height really something that's critical, or I don't understand why we're allowed to poke way up above normal tree lines in one area, but we are not willing to do it in others. That doesn't seem fair to everybody involved.
The height of the tower is dependent on the service needs of the area and what is proposed. So in this area, the Bruder Hill height, I don't remember getting, I actually worked on that project years ago. I don't remember getting too many objections from local property owners over there. Most notably, I did not receive an objection from the people directly across the street from it. So when they proposed a higher tower height, it just sort of went through without issue. This one, more property owners are addressing the height, and the AT&T is looking, has reevaluated the site and decided that they can go lower, so that's what they decided to do.
I kind of concur with Supervisor Callaway in terms of a setback away from the road and the visual impacts of a project right next to the road as that is proposed. If there's any way to set it back a little bit further off the road, that would be less of an impact to the neighbors and their surrounding property owners that are there. On page 437, it talks about free phones and free this and free that. What is that all about?
That was Mr. Shanner's letter. That was his proposed mitigation that he requested. And I included that in there because that was part of his letter, part of his argument, that if we were to go ahead with the tower, that to mitigate against that, he wanted to see those things. And we addressed that and state that most of those mitigations that did not cover the aesthetic impact were not appropriate for us to compel AT&T to do.
Okay, so this isn't something that's going to be required as part of this project?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm what that was.
Why, did you want a free phone too?
No, no, I just want to be sure that we're being fair to everybody concerned and that we're all on the same page about how we're doing this. So, also, towers of these types where they stick above the normal tree line are more subject to lightning strikes. Has that been accounted for at this location?
Generally, that's accounted for with all new tower installations, and they are grounded in such a way to dissipate and not cause an undue risk of fire.
Okay. And I know that Mr. Shanner's letter, he said he had 13 signers to that letter?
Yeah, I've been in contact with most of the neighbors around there.
All right.
I
So-
thank staff for sending, those are the ones that contacted me.
Yeah, I appreciate that too.
Plus staff sent us all the correspondence that they received.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Tuffanelli?
Yeah, I'm looking at page 423. It shows the telecommunication towers. I have a couple of questions about the wall and the fencing. Is this wall, CMU wall, and then the fence being built on top of it, is that going with the road? So you can't see any of the equipment when you're driving down the road. You can't see any equipment because the fence is taller. Because you look at the other side of the fence and it's well below the equipment that's going to be there.
So this is Ashley Smith with Epic Wireless Group, once again. So with the CMU wall and the proposed 6-foot high wood fence, most of the equipment will be concealed. You will see about 2 feet of the equipment shelter, but everything else will be enclosed behind the CMU wall and the wood fence.
So that's parallel with the road. So driving down the road, you see the fence and the CMU wall.
Right.
And
Yes.
none of the equipment. Is there a reason why you're not going a little bit further to cover all of the equipment?
AT&T usually will propose a 6-foot high wood fence or vinyl slat fence.
You don't need
We want the wood fence to enclose better. We could possibly go up an additional 2 feet, but that would be changing the design as well.
You mean from 6 feet to 8 feet?
That would
Or
require a
choose-
permit too, I believe.
Yeah, I know.
Separate permit, which is, I mean, I don't know, other than just stopping at 6 feet because of the permit issue or something else versus making sure when you drive down the road, you don't see all that equipment. Just a question.
The roads now, there's a lot, it's a very treed road, a lot of trees
Mhm.
on that road. You know, so if they could move the fence or some of it back, so it's not as close to the road,
That's right on.
that would, well, I was waiting for them to call the CHP because I'm driving up and down Falcon Mine Road, thinking, who's this strange lady driving up and down our road? And it's sort of curved, and there's a lot of trees, but I think if it could be moved back some, yeah.
10 feet?
If you could move it back at least 10 feet, would that be possible?
So after looking at the project and the location, we could only go up to 10 feet back. That's about the max that we'd be able to move the location of the tower.
We'll take it.
And so, yes, and this is Julie Town with AT&T again. That would be, there would be no other alternative after that, because every time we recite a location and make design changes, as we have here, bringing the tower height down, it impacts our coverage and the amount of living units we can cover. And we want to try to provide the most of the broadband and wireless coverage technology to the highest number of living units there, especially in terms of public safety. I know we work closely with Sheriff D. Basilio as we have brought up our 6 sites on air last year for the FirstNet Public Safety Network, and want to make sure that we have enough of the community there to access that network, especially for, and also to consideration for first responders. So thank you, Ashley, for sharing that. We could take a look at the 10 feet, but we would not have an opportunity to do anything outside of that.
Thank you. Mr. Stopper.
Thank you, everyone. Just back to the road impacts that Supervisor Mills has brought up. Typically, with my experience prior to the Planning Commission, the mitigation standard was to bring roads back to original or better status as after construction. Here it says any damage to road will be repaired on packet page 428. Will this be wording within the AUP as they proceed so that if any, 2 to 4 vehicle trips per month is minimal and typically would not do any damage to road? But if there was any situation, would it be part of the administrative use permit to say that any damage in the future done by these vehicles would be remedied by said owner of tower?
Yes, so this is Ashley Smith with Epic Wireless again. AT&T will be repairing the road for the association. And AT&T will also be sending a fee out to the road association as well in regards to the tower installation.
Mr. Spear, Did you understand what Mr. Stopper was saying regarding the AUP?
I believe so. I'd refer to Peter on how we'd exactly word that condition for some sort of contingency of a road impact related to the tower in the future.
He's deferring to Peter. Mr. Moore?
Mr.
So, yeah, I'm just sort of thinking here, we could certainly come up with a condition that, that identifies that they will participate their fair share of road maintenance costs to the Falcon Road Mine Association.
Would the builder of the communications tower be good for that part? In the AUP? Is that palatable for future mitigation on the roads?
As far as future mitigation within the AUP, AT&T will be following the conditions they're within.
Okay. Mr. Tuffanelli.
Yeah, it's dovetailing off that road situation a little bit. Peter, are you familiar with this road?
Generally, I haven't spent much time on it. I think I've been up it once or twice.
Is it constructed to county standards?
No.
I do not believe so.
Oh, okay. So the repairs on it, what standards are we going to be using to do the repairs on the road if there's any destruction to it during construction? If it's not county standards, what standards are to be used?
The condition in the permit is to replace it to a previous condition.
Yeah, that opens up a can of worms as far as I'm concerned, because is there going to be inspection on it? Then if it wasn't county standard, there's not going to be any inspection, and so you just put it back to where you feel we think it's as good as it was, and that is a concern to this road in the future of the road, whether the repairs are done in accordance to some type of standards. And I don't know if something can be put in the AUP concerning that. I don't know the road myself. Marita says she's driven up and down it many times. I don't know if it's a good smooth road, the condition of it. Does it have potholes in it? Is it got? I mean, I'm just concerned about what standards are to be used for the construction of any repairs. So it's brought up to it's a good repair and it's going to last.
It has, go ahead, Mr. Maurer.
Well, we don't have a standard. There's no template that says it's going to be meeting a certain standard template. And I think that the condition that we have is that it's repaired to its previous condition. We can inspect prior to instruction to see, okay, it's a smooth paved road, it's got gravel, whatever the condition is, and if it's damaged because of heavy equipment coming in, then they may, that brings it back up to the standard, in which case, where it was before. And that would be something that we would have an engineer certify that, if damage was done, and I think that we probably would work with the road association, not that they would have sort of dictatorial ability to say, here's how we want the road, but here's the information that we have, how it was beforehand. We can look at it when it's done and we'd say, this has been damaged, it needs to be repaired, and we would have a contractor, identify what that would need to be. It's hard to have a hard and fast, template, because we don't have a template that matches this road.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you. Madam Chair, this is your district, so defer to you on most of my questions, but is this area covered by, does it have cell phone coverage? Spotty at best.
I don't know.
I don't know. You would think with my driving up and down, I would have checked.
Spotty at best is sometimes as good as we get around here. Does it have high-speed rail, internet, high-speed, I know it doesn't have high-speed rail, sorry. Does it have high-speed internet? No. No? So, you know, living in an area where I don't generally have cell phone service or high-speed internet, we are providing a service to our citizens. This is a private company that has a break point on whether this is a valuable investment for them or not. We should always be cautious in balancing what the public service that's provided is and where this service is likely to walk because they don't have to do it. So, you know, I'd be interested in, you know, maybe the opponents have different cell phone coverage and they could get things done, but I just urge us before we bury them in too much.
Got it. Thank you. Mr. Mills?
Yeah, having fought fires up there and driven that road, the association, I need to reiterate, does not have, that is not within their boundaries for road repairs or road maintenance. They simply take care of that road on their own because of how it impacts the access into the rest of that area in El Camino Casal. So that's just a point to make. I agree with the need to push it just a little bit further off the road if it's possible to do that. Other than that, there isn't a whole lot that of restriction that I see is going to be any value other than just being sure that they're not going to wreck the road and leave everybody else responsible for that in the future.
Thank you. I'd like to move to public comment.
So we can go ahead and put the number on the screen. I do have one public comment that was emailed in on Friday afternoon, so I'd like to read that into the record while we're waiting for people to call in. So this email was received from Candace Rawpock, Chair of the Falcon Mine Road Association. I am the chair of the Falcon Mine Road Association. We are an association formed by the property owners in Murphy's Pine subdivision, dedicated to maintaining the roads within the subdivision. These properties are all accessed by Falcon Mine Road. In 1994, the property owners paid to pave Falcon Mine Road and have maintained the road for use by property owners and their guests ever since. Our concern with this resolution to approve the construction of a cell tower on a property located on Falcon Mine Road is to ensure that construction and ongoing traffic impacts to the site will be borne by the owner of the tower. This is a very steep road that could easily be damaged by trucks accessing the site for maintenance several times a month. Please include responsibility for maintaining Falcon Mine Road by the owner of the tower in your discussions about this proposed project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I don't see any other callers.
Okay. I'd like to wait a moment.
Okay. It looks like we may be getting one. Well, there's a phone number that I don't recognize, and it hasn't been renamed yet, so it may be a public. Okay, so we do have a public comment from a caller with the phone number ending in 8501. You can go ahead with your comments to the Board of Supervisors now, please.
Hi, thanks. This is Sean Michael. I live across the street from the property on French Gulch Road, and I had a question about on the agenda submittal administration use permit implication item 1. It talks about co-location. Does that mean that there's going to be several other towers in the future? I know Ashley Smith stated that AT&T was going to allow Sprint and Verizon to hook on, but does that mean they're going to have other towers and making this more of a commercial lot that we don't want in the area?
Mean that there's going to be several other towers in the future. I know Ashley Smith stated that AT&T was going to allow Sprint and Verizon to hook on, but does that mean they're going to have other towers?
She's watching and hasn't muted what she's watching. Ma'am, if you could please mute your audio on your device that you're watching the meeting.
Yes.
Is that the end of your comment?
No, I also Ashley had mentioned that they were looking at other property that was northwest of this property and saying it wasn't suitable, but we've asked several times the neighbors for somebody to come out here and look at another location that is right up the street, 200 acres, not other residents in the immediate area, with a road access off of Frankie Mine Road. And wondering why. This also has access, visual access to Bear Mountain. I think that was one of the requirements. And can this whole thing be thrown back to the planning department? And please, somebody come out here and look at this.
Thank you.
That was all I had to say.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Michaels. Is there any other?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it looks like there's one more that's coming through.
Okay, thank you.
Public comment for the caller whose number is ending in 0908. Please go ahead with your comments.
AT&T, I was dropped from the call, so answer. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, I don't see any other public comments.
Okay, thank you. The question, which I'm glad the caller spoke about it, on Mr. Spear on co-location, PF-7E, what does that mean?
The co-location refers to the ability to put more antenna on a single tower. So oftentimes you'll see cell towers with 2 tiers of antenna on them because you have multiple carriers on a single tower, be it Verizon and AT&T or Sprint or whomever it is. It's not being able to put multiple towers on a location.
So there, under what's being granted, there would be no ability for another tower. If another tower came in, it would have to go through the process, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad they asked. That was a question I had too. Also, the one that Ms. Michael talked about, the other location, if I remember, it was looked at and the property owner said no. Could you please refresh and answer the question? Thank you.
Perhaps I could address that. This is Peter Maurer. We process the application as submitted by the applicant. It's not the county's responsibility to try to figure out other alternative sites. There's a very exhaustive process that any carrier will go through to find appropriate sites, and that includes, negotiating with property owners to see whether or not they're even interested in having that. So it would not be appropriate for the county staff to go out and look for other locations on other private property. That is something that the carrier does before they submit their application to us. This is they've determined that based on a variety of factors, including coverage requirements, costs, and ability of to negotiate a lease with the property owner, that this is their chosen site.
Does the applicant wish to address this at all?
Yes, this is Ashley Smith with Epic Wireless Group again. In regards to the northwest location that I was previously referring to, those locations were looked at on our selected property owner parcel. That was not in regards to any property outside of his parcel. We did review the area before we submitted to the county, and this was the location that was approved by AT&T and pushed to move forward with. And it's the best location that we were able to find at that time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no other comments? All right, I'm going to bring this item back to the board. Mr. Spear, if I understand correctly, the adjustments to the AUP will be to move the project back 10 feet? What? Well, I just want to wrap it up before we take action. I want to make sure they have it. All right. I don't know why, because I'm just summarizing. Do you want me to close it?
You said you were going to bring, I'm sorry. You said you were going to bring it back to the board. I thought that meant you were closing the public hearing.
So that we have the 10-foot, it would be brought back 10 feet, and that they'd be responsible for joining the Falcon Mine Road Association to pay for their fair share of road maintenance. Is that correct, Mr. Spear? Did you hear that correctly?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you. That they join the Falcon Mine Road Association and pay what there would be their fair share of any road maintenance on Falcon Mine Road.
So I have some proposed language for that condition, although I want to make sure it's clear that, the Falcon Mine Road Association covers a broad area that serves many residences. The stretch of road that would be impacted by the carrier in the future is just this first few hundred feet of that road leading to the access point to the tower. And so, it's going to be a very minimal amount of, to cover their ongoing costs. But the language I would recommend is the permittee shall participate in ongoing maintenance for its fair share of road maintenance costs within the Falcon Mine Road Association.
Okay. Mr. Mills, does that kind of also meet your concern too?
It does, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going...
Madam Chair, I have a
Yeah.
question. Falcon Hill Road Association, is that a private industry? Is that a county CSA? What is it? So we're going to force this private company to give money with undefined fair share to a who? To this group? I'm just cautious about that. Whether we should ask. I hear we need money for the roads. I get it, but I don't know. Okay.
Can I add a little bit to what he's saying? Does the current homeowner of the property pay into the association road fees?
This is Ashley Smith with Epic Wireless Group. From what I understand, the current property owner does pay into the road association. I believe it's a one-time payment each year, and AT&T, he had requested in the lease agreement to add language that AT&T will pay a fee after construction to the road association. It's a one-time payment to the road association.
Yeah, I think it's the responsibility of the property owner, if he's already paying into the homeowners association road maintenance fees for the property. That's like me wanting to put up a metal building on my 20 acres up the road and want to use it to store hay or whatever. So I have hay truck coming up. Am I going to pay separate for the building because I put a building up there and I'm utilizing it? I'm already paying into a road association fee, the property owner is. I can understand the one-time fee for AT&T to put the building up and build the road up to a standard that it was prior to their building, and then maybe a one-time fee for the on maintenance of the thing, but the property owner himself is already paying into that fee. You're trying to add something into it that I don't think I would agree to, because you could be opening the door up to anything up there that anybody builds to improve their property and having to pay additional fees on an ongoing basis for it.
Mr. Spear, is this a single driveway that will be shared by AT&T and the property owner?
The tower is utilizing an existing driveway that is currently there, yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So it seems like, though, Mr. Mills, the issue of their paying to the Falcon Mine Road is covered in their lease. Mm-hmm. So then we wouldn't really need to do it as part of the AUP.
The goal is as long as it's covered.
Okay, well, we're not responsible for the lease agreement between the two parties.
We're not.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Let me close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board on adding this section to the AUP?
Madam Chair, I would defer to you.
That's
being
correct.
in your district.
It's your district.
After all the free advice I've been getting from you guys, thank you.
Hey.
Gosh dang.
You want the 10-foot setback.
Well, no, that's for sure. I'm just talking about whether we want them to participate, to pay for their fair share, as Mr. Mauer addressed.
Mr. Mauer, did they agree to that?
I thought that I had heard that they had agreed to that.
They had
and,
agreed to it.
Then leave it in.
Okay, Mr.
This
Mauer.
is Ashley with Epic Wireless Group. So the agreement with the landowner was that a fee was to be paid to the landowner to go to the road association on Falcon Mine Road, but AT&T will not join an association for the length of the term that the facility is there. But that was between the property owner and AT&T with the fee that is going to the road association.
So actually, I think the concern of the board is our experience has been as we get into these quagmires 5 years down the road, and how do we resolve that? Through the commercial enterprise being the tower and the residents, even though the project might be accessed only 2 or 3 times, maybe a month. So how would you recommend that we resolve this? Otherwise, we can put it into the AUP.
She just said it.
Well, she just said we don't join associations.
Exactly. She said that they had a lease with the landowners and the contract that addresses that.
But we have no control over the lease. I think that's what I heard Mr. Mills say. I mean, the lease agreement could say whatever it wants. They're going to run 2 cows in this enclosure. It doesn't matter. That's between the property owner and AT&T. Does the county, which we have control over the AUP, want anything in there that says that they would be have a responsibility for their fair share on any road maintenance? And we're not talking about once the project's done. I'm talking 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road when work needs to be done. And then we get called because here we have a commercial enterprise that is not paying a fair share.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this improvement on the property is going to lead to an increase in property taxes, I'm assuming, correct? I would assume so. I would assume this would be there. I just have a problem. Fair share is not a defined term. So I don't know why could ask a company to enter into something as broad-based as your fair share to be determined by who? Who says what's fair? That's pretty open-ended. I think if we're going to ask for some sort of money to help mitigate the road, we have rim fees, we have other fees like that. We could directly tie it. But I could never ask someone you have to join this and pay a fair share for a permit. That's too broad, ma'am.
We run into this a lot, Supervisor, and other.
I understand.
And
Cautious.
Madam Chair,
we're not very far up from French Gulch.
with all due respect, we can't be using our rim fees on a private road anyway.
No, I think he was using that as just an example.
Okay, and my example is,
Otherwise, we'd take it out of his budget, so.
there you go.
That was just an example.
But my best example would be the Fowler Peak situation, and not wanting to run down that road. What I'm not sure of is that this parcel owner is actually part of that association and is required to pay their share into that association, or whether it's voluntary or how it all works. So I just want some assurance that if there is additional maintenance that's required in that particular location because of its use, that we don't have a future board have to revisit it simply because we didn't think about it now.
If I may, Madam Chair, I don't know if this is at all helpful to the board in your thought process or discussion of this, but there is a default under the civil code, which is that if anyone has property on a private road, that property owner is required to pay for maintenance at a rate proportional to their use. So other property owners do have legal recourse under the civil code. I don't know if that's something that factors into the board's
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but that means that they have to spend money to go to court to get whomever, and I think what we're trying to do is avoid that process.
Correct.
Okay, I'm trying to, Mr. Tuffanelli.
Madam Chair, may I add to this discussion? So section 1722.060 of the county code provides for non-residential use of private roads, and how we address that. That's for the RR zone, which is what's proposed here. And essentially it says that if they generate more traffic, which is than a single-family residence, which is an average of 7.5 trips per day, that they would need to then participate in the maintenance of that road. And so if there are 3 trips per month, that's about 1% of the amount of traffic that is generated by a residence. And so our finding on this was that minor increase in traffic is really, it's not something you could even really account for. It's more or less a rounding error with the amount of traffic that could be generated by a single family residence. The other thing to consider is this is the very first lot on the property, rather than something at the very back end of the road system where vehicle trips would be utilizing the entire road system. Just the opposite of the Fowler Peak issue that Supervisor Mills has brought up, where indeed there is a great deal of traffic that runs through the entire private road system. So our finding on this was that the amount of ongoing traffic once construction has occurred or completed would be essentially inconsequential to the maintenance of the road system and the impact on the private road system, and therefore we did not recommend that that there be a condition added that they are required to participate, other than repair of any damage that might have occurred due to construction.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I think based on what Mr. Mauer said and what Mr. Spear supported, I'll remove asking the board for this condition under the AUP. Mr. Tuffanelli.
Well, Peter kind of hit on some of what I was going to say. It depends. A lot of these road systems are set up to where everybody pays the same amount. My particular homeowner association, it doesn't matter where you live on the road, you pay $375 a year. Others are set up to where the less you travel it, the less you pay. Like this would be the first lot. They could be paying maybe $200 a year. Where they're further up the road, they could be paying $700 a year because they travel the road a greater distance. The only, if you're really stuck on this, Marita, it's your district and what you want to do, you could say that they don't have to join the homeowners association because the property owner is already participating apparently in the homeowners association for the payment of the road maintenance. You could just say whatever the property owner is currently paying per year, that they have to pay the current going rate for that lot for the year. If it's $375 a year, then they pay in the homeowners association separately $375 for their portion of the maintenance of the road, or whatever it is the current property owner is paying. And if it's set up in a structure where they're the first lot on the road, they could be paying significantly less than everybody else. But that would cover your concerns. I would think it would cover Dennis's concerns also.
I think because I don't want to get involved in a issue between the leasee and the lessor. And I would just want to do what we would have control over, but thank you. So I guess I'm asking for 2 motions, or we can make it 1, and including amending the AUP to moving the setback 10 feet. Did I miss anything else, gentlemen? Thank you.
Madam Chair, if it's palatable for you, I would make a motion amending to move the setback 10 more, or the actual footprint back 10 more feet from the property line or road, with everything else as the planning director has recommended. Is that fitting for you?
It's your district.
Well, I'm wanting to just withdraw from the road issue.
I didn't bring up the road issue.
He didn't bring up the road issue.
Yes.
Setback 10 feet.
Oh, right.
Everything.
That's all I said.
Okay. I just want to make that.
It was clear.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't, because you talked about what Mr. Mauer said.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. All right.
So just a reminder that the action that needs to be taken first is the action on the environmental document and the ordinance amendment to rezone the property. And then the second item would be a resolution to approve the AUP itself. Just for the record, I wanted to make sure that it's clear that looking back at the environmental document, moving the tower would not impact any of the environmental analysis that was done. The site-specific analysis was covered the general area around, not just the footprint of the proposed site. So cultural resources, biological resources, anything else that was site-specific had been addressed for the area in general.
Correct.
Thank you, Peter.
It's the AUP that will be modified, not the...
So ultimately what we'd want to do is modify condition 1-2 on the AUP, that I would add the language at the end of that condition. It says a tower site and facility shall be relocated 10 feet to the southwest from the location identified on the site plan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, yes. So, yeah. Okay, I'd like to have a motion on the mitigated negative deck and adopting the ordinance changing the AUP from, the zoning from unclassified to RR. I can do the first and the second? Oh, No, it's all right.
Well, his motion did include the AUP language, so if he wants to, with item 32, approve it, that would be the motion.
As our beloved clerk has stated. I will move.
Could you repeat that? Okay, I have a motion on item 32. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Tofanelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote. I'd like to move to item 31, a resolution approving the AUP, Administrative Use Permit, for a new singular wireless.
As amended?
As amended, thank you.
So moved.
A motion by Supervisor Stopper, a second
I'll second it.
by
So
Supervisor...
seconded.
By Supervisor Mills. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes on a 5-0 vote. Thank you, colleagues. Did you have something you wanted to say, Council? No?
No?
Oh, okay. Well, we're seeing you up there on our screen.
So, Madam Chair, we have about 20 minutes left on our DVD. Just
Okay,
telling
so
you.
what I want to do is move to supervisors' announcements, then we're going to take a break, and we'll come back for closed session,
Are we going to take a lunch break?
a lunch break.
So can I just ask that what we could do is we'll read all of the closed sessions into the record, and then you can recess to closed session. That way we don't have to come back after lunch and read that into the record.
As you said, whatever the the board said. Okay, but are there any supervisor announcements on anything they'd like to share? Okay, good. Okay, let's move to closed session agenda. Could you keep the items really tight? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, item 33, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase price, and terms of payment for the following property affected by the Dogtown Road over French Gulch project, agency negotiator, Monument Row, negotiating party and respective property owner, APN, A, Thomas M. Tryon and Denise E. Tryon, trustees, Thomas M. Tryon and Denise E. Tryon Family Trust, as to APN 056-002-010. B, Russell P. Stevens, 311th sole and separate property, Sharon P. Miller Dunn, 311th sole and separate property, Larry E. Ponte, 5/22 undivided interest, and Mary Helen Ponte, 5/22 undivided interest, as to APN 056-002-011. C, James C. Bankosh and Cal Lee Bankosh, joint tenants, as to APN 056-002-002. Rodney V. Sanders and Savannah L. Tyndall, joint tenants, as to APN 056-002-001. Denise Orr, trustee, 2000, Denise Orr Revocable Trust, as to APN 056-002-007. Bartow T. Rush and Tina A. Rush, joint tenants, as to APN 056-002-003. If we could put the public comment numbers on the screen, that would be really helpful. Item 34, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase, price, and terms of payment for the following property affected by the Dogtown Road over Indian Creek project. Agency negotiator, Monument Row, negotiating party and respective property, APN. Deirdre Dalton, trustee of the Deirdre Dalton Revocable Trust, as to APN 038-012-034. Item 35, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase, price, and terms of payment for the following property affected by the Dogtown Road over San Domingo project. Agency negotiator, Monument Row. Negotiating party and respective property APN is Anita Valente Nyland, trustee of the Walter Valente Trust, as to APN 056-001-018 and 056-001-024. Item 36, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Michael Scott Taylor et al., v. County of Calaveras, United States District Court, Eastern District of California, case number 118CV 00760DADBAM. Item 37, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, County Designated Labor Negotiator Judy Hawkins regarding employee organizations, Calaveras County Sheriff's Management Unit, Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association, and Calaveras County Deputy Sheriff's Association. And lastly, item 38, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Calaveras Planning Coalition v. Calaveras County Board of Supervisors et al., Calaveras County Superior Court case number 19CV 44471.
If there are any public comments on this, please call.
I don't see any callers, Madam Chair.
Okay. We will stand in recess until 2:30. Is that enough time, Supervisor Garamendi?
Yes.
Okay. He's the one whose stomach's been growling.
Okay, so we're recessing
We're
until 2:30.
recessing till 2:30.